I firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today, and I humbly pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri Nation and their past, future and emerging elders. I note there are a number of people in attendance tonight, so in the dire case of an emergency, we exit to the door at the back, to the doors on your right and out to the road to wait further instruction. I would like to make all aware that tonight's council meeting is being recorded with our live streaming policy and published in accordance with that policy. So those present in the gallery, it's just a reminder that your voice and maybe your image can be caught and will be streamed live, and your comments will also be part of that live stream. Note that the Chair or the General Manager has the discretion to interrupt that live screening or terminate at any time they think it might be deemed necessary. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. So it's something for everyone to be aware of. Item 3 on the agenda is our public forum. And as I said, tonight we have a number of speakers, and my understanding is the microphone's been handed down. The first speaker speak tonight, and you will have 5 minutes to speak. In 4 minutes, I'll give you a little beep warning bell that there's a minute left to go. So the first speaker tonight is representing the Country University Centre Group, is Sue Gordon. So Sue.
Mayor Ingram, councillors, staff, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you very much for allowing us to speak, and I'd like to speak in support of the proposed new Cultural Community and Education Precinct. I'm here, as Brian said, representing the Country University Centre, and we would like to be part of the new precinct with a space provided for those wishing to access higher education remotely. I'm also part of the steering committee, and I'd like to thank the Mayor for that privilege. I feel that this is such an exciting asset for the town, and great kudos must go to Council in the success of their grant application to the New South Wales Government for $3 million. It's been refreshing to read of the community swing in favour of the proposal to have a joint use facility with the Young High School, which can only augur well for the community in years to come and be a win-win for everyone concerned. I'd like to propose what I consider to be an analogy. 25 years ago, I was part of the Young Preschool Committee that could see a need for more preschool spaces, as at the time we could not provide enough space for all the enrolments that we had. We approached the Young Shire Council, who agreed to provide the land, which was part of the old cherry orchard in Prospect Street and which backed onto the preschool. We then approached the Department of Community Services for funding for additional spaces and an extension. We were told that if we put in a submission for preschool alone, we would be unsuccessful. But if we applied for a multi-purpose children's centre, we could be in with a chance. So we thought, what have we got to lose? We need to provide early childhood education to more children, so what does it matter what it's called? That project turned out to be a state-of-the-art early learning centre for little people that had as its core principle that the children enrolled in whatever type of care that best suits the family and is the cheapest option. Once the child walked through the door, it was drafted on age alone. Because it was both state and federally funded, we had the flexibility to make those choices on behalf of the family. Being funded by both levels of government also gave us 2 bites at the cherry with grant applications, a real win-win. At the time, there was negative community talk, with some people saying that my clients will never use a facility like that, but they did. This was a first in joint funding, and there were 7 centres built as a trial across New South Wales, all very different. Annette's Place became a model centre with many educators from across the state and even interstate visiting to see firsthand how it was done. I see now that Annette's Place was ahead of its time then, ahead of community thinking. 25 years later, many early childhood services in the state operate on a type of multi-purpose or multi-funded model, especially in more remote areas where standalone services are unviable. I see the same thing happening with this exciting new project, a total new concept that may take people time to get their head around. Governments are demanding more bang for their buck these days, and this project certainly achieves that aim. It is my belief that a lot of negatives will be addressed in the heritage study being conducted, and I have every faith that the architects will be very sympathetic to the beauty and history of Carrington Park as the precinct's outlook. I will finish by urging Council to support the motion and accept the once-in-a-lifetime grant of $3 million for the multi-purpose use of the proposed cultural, community and education precinct. It is such an exciting project and such a wonderful opportunity to have a really grand building complementing the grand pillars of the young high school that overlooks a lovely, peaceful park. Please do not let the opportunity slip you by.
Thank you for that. Next speaker up is Emma Coburn.
Hello everybody, my name is Emma Coburn and I come completely been running around between camp. I'm just going to, can everyone hear me? Because that's cutting. Do you want me up? Okay. I actually came from a meeting with the Department of Deputy Prime Minister this morning, actually in Canberra, about our foundation. So I'm coming here representing my family as a citizen of Young, and also our foundation as well, looking at that facility that we're hopefully going to get in town, and well done. I realise there's been a lot of negative stuff floating around about it. People are unsure because we don't have all the detail yet. I know what that's like. My husband's been building for the last 15 or 20 years, and I understand what it's like to need to see the plans and the detail to understand how it's all going to work. However, all of that will come together. We've been given a briefing and an idea. So this, it's still cutting out, even though I'm... Oh, do you want me? I'm a teacher, I can talk. Oh, okay, right. Well, do you want me to keep persevering, or...? Thank you.
$60 million budget and we can't have a microphone.
Sorry. Okay. So apologies that I can't look to the people behind me as well. When this opportunity came up, and I thought, yes, beauty, finally we've got something that is going to bring our town into the 22nd century, because as a mother of 3 children, the eldest of which has just started at Young High School in Year 7 this year, and we've got 2 in primary school out at Monteagle, I'm looking to what opportunities our kids are going to have in the next 10, 15 years, and not only that, but their kids and the future generations of our town. As a small building business, we've seen development in our town slow down at the moment. There doesn't seem to be a lot of things happening, and this is an opportunity that could, enable businesses and economy in our town to be boosted. I think of the jobs that it's going to create for the people that actually have to run that facility. I think of the facility that the high schoolers are going to have available to them. Now, I went into the TAFE the other day. I've seen information about the library at Young TAFE. If the area that I walked into that was barely as big as this was their library, I can tell you now that's not going to be enough to suit the needs of all of our future generations. So we need, a better facility. It was actually our daughter that won that design competition with the primary schools, and I tried to get my kids involved in this and interested because this is their future as well. Now, all the costings, the detail, I realise all that has to be worked through, but where there is a will, there is a way. We have the opportunity to get something that we're not going to get again for a long time. As part of the foundation where we're dealing with roads and infrastructure transport, I've been to quite a few national and international conferences over the last few years in our country, and all of the talk always centres on the eastern seaboard and the cities. That's where the talk is, that's where the money is. Half the time they don't even remember that there's anything beyond the Great Divide. Finally, we've got this opportunity to get some money, so let's take it and let's use it and get the best that we can, the best facility that we can for our kids, for our older generations to access, for our groups in town, where they can go, for example, like ours. I can see a room like this where we can have the Skype, where our board members from Melbourne or wherever else they may end up coming from can all Skype in. We can all have a proper meeting where we can see each other, sit and talk and work on what we're doing. TAFE, I've been to the TAFE where they have that sort of facility, and it'd be great to have that open to the general public, that we can all have those types of facilities to use. We're not just talking about a library, it's, you know, so much more than that. And just as an aside note too, please can we get a heated pool?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manchester's arrived as the speaker was going. The next speaker we have is Judy McFadden, and hopefully the microphone plays fair.
I'm going to talk really quickly because I do have a bit, and is it okay if I put them down as I go? Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Why is a resident of Harden involving herself in the business of young? I thank Mayor Ingram, who in February stated the proposed cultural community and education precinct has the potential to deliver a range of facilities and services to our area that would not only enhance educational opportunities, it would cultivate our talented artists, provide support facilities for our youth, it would foster our historical and cultural assets and ultimately be the jewel in the crown of our Hilltops region. As a passionate educator and advocate for children and for my community, and with qualifications and extensive and diverse experiences teaching children from birth to year 12 and always in our shire, I wanted to contribute to an exciting visionary opportunity that will serve all residents from early childhood to elderhood now and well into the future. I know that this proposal has caused controversy and I acknowledge the concerns of that group. In meetings, however, I've witnessed a positive energy and spirit of collaboration and cooperation in the consultation process between involved councillors, council and school staff, between librarians, artists and local community representatives. I believe it is thanks to the Council Project Officer, Kaylee, whose professionalism and expertise at all times has been so evident during the coordination of the many intricate facets of this proposal. Kaylee facilitated an open and well-attended community forum last November. She's explained the processes of the project and has updated and consulted with us, enabling respectful and productive conversations from a diverse group of stakeholders. Don't count that in my time. I acknowledge the need to understand and preserve the history of the Carrington Park, of Young and indeed of Hilltops as a unique landscape in the history of Australia. Believe me, I do understand, as where I live just out of Harden is rich in the history of the gold rush. Diggings, dugouts, tent sites, bushrangers, hideout in McMahon's Reef Mine and the Chinese market gardens. It's a place that's also unveiling its significance as part of the Wiradjuri songlines and a history that travels across more than 40,000 years in time. Our local historians like Joe Kinsler have such passion and knowledge of Young's history. The beauty of connecting the high school in Carrington Park is that it will highlight, celebrate and embrace the opportunity to explore, uncover and acknowledge our past and move forward together. I strongly encourage you to take the opportunity to collaborate, to create ownership of our community heritage and to make the history come alive for our present and future generations. I'm passionate about this joint project because of the educational and social opportunities for all families and students now and into the future across the Shire. I know that Councillor Flannery knows the value of enabling, supporting and empowering our students through his family involvement in Harden Country Education Foundation. Tony, I believe this will enhance and support ours and other education foundations as we strive to provide opportunities for our youth and school leavers. Imagine, the possibilities are endless. Imagine the opportunities for students and families in Harden, Bora and the villages to link virtually the library and the precinct. Imagine remote access to the new library facilities and programs through the wider area network Council has installed. Imagine the schools and communities accessing story times, toy library and other library activities. Imagine students in JUGIONG and MURRUMBURRAH who are already involved in deep learning about Wiradjuri culture, using technology to link into language lessons, facilitated by the already renowned work of high school. Imagine families in Harden, Bula and our villages accessing the community hub remotely. Imagine our local historians running history walking tours of the and young. Imagine the school children of the Shire being able to connect remotely to share their community histories and make it ours. Remoteness and isolation can diminish. Our Shire will become smaller and connected, and our community spirit will grow. To me, it's a no-brainer that it should be sited in Young, the largest centre in the Shire. However, I've been disillusioned by a series of media statements which I believe have been timed to create angst in Hilltops communities and destabilise the decision you're about to make tonight. In recent media, Councillor Stadmiller stated, if the state government want to turn Young High School into a super school, that's going to become an issue for both. It's going to become an issue for both the residents of Young and the surrounding towns. If it does turn into a super school, then what are the other schools in the district getting? This claim by Councillor Stadmiller has been refuted categorically by New South Wales Department of Education in a statement to the Young Witness this afternoon. The article suggests that the department has rubbished the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party Cootamundra spokesman. His claims that a super school is going to be built in Young. The DOE stated the library proposal will not have any impact on other public schools in the region, including secondary provision at MURRUMBURRAH, HARDEN, MURRUMBURRAH and Grenfell.
Okay, Judy, you're just about your time's there if you'd like to wind up.
Okay. How long?
You're gone.
I've gone? Fine. Let's get together, guys, and let's make this a reality. It's really important.
Thank you.
I can leave you a copy of the rest if you like.
The next speaker is Larry Wordsworth.
I think some people are under the misunderstanding that this new $3 million grant that we've got is dependent on the joint facility going ahead. When Mr. Barilaro announced the grant of $3 million for a library at Young, he said it was for a location to be decided by council. He did not say that a condition of the grant was that it had to be spent on the joint use facility. At the same meeting, Steph Cook said the community will decide. Now you have before you a recommended resolution that you, to quote, accept the regional cultural grant of $3 million for the joint use facility as the site for the new Young Public Library and delegate to the General Manager to begin negotiations on a heads of agreement for the facility. If this is passed, it cements the decision to go ahead with the joint facility regardless of what the residents of Young want, and ignoring a petition of about over 2,000 signatures of residents against the proposal to build in Carrington Park. At the first steering committee meeting, Mr. Ingram stated that the proposal was not set in cement. This resolution, if passed, certainly sets it in cement before council has considered the costs to council and other considerations. Has the council had a firm commitment from the state government that it will fund the approximate $32 million that is apparently required for a joint facility? It also ignores the criteria of the location of a town library by the New South Wales State Library. If the resolution was changed to for a location to be decided instead of the joint facility, there would be no problem. The Regional Cultural Funding Agreement does not say that the $3 million grant is conditional on the joint facility for the library going ahead. The steering committee that the council set up would become redundant if this resolution is passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. The next speaker in relation to JUGIONG Landscape Master Plan is Michelle Delaney.
Councillors, Mayor, good afternoon, everyone else. Good evening. Look, I'll make it short and sweet. I I am all for development in JUGIONG. I'm a fourth generation local. I've left many years ago. I've been back for 2 years now. I'm also a business owner. However, I'd like to state that what's going on is it's looking like we're going to separate the town. I understand that something needs to be done about the safety concerns that we have, but we're only looking at half of the town, so we're not fixing those safety concerns at all. We have one main area of accommodation, which is at the opposite end of town, the JUGIONG Motor Inn. Now, I can tell you out there at the moment, particularly with the fog, you can't see 2 metres in front of you, and that's driving a car. So people walking along the roads, using their phones as flashlights, it's just not working. We need to re-look at it. The other thing that concerns me is JUGIONG's love for its raw landscape. It's untouched. We have camp draft that goes through there once a year. They move so much cattle. Everything that we're looking at landscaping down there, it's going to go. So are we wasting money on things that we don't need when we need to start looking at developing the whole town and not just one area? So yeah, that's literally all I have to say.
Thank you. The next speaker tonight on the same subject is Jenny Sturrock.
Good evening. I'll start by introducing myself. Yes, I'm Jenny Sturrock. I own and operate the JUGIONG Motor Inn with my husband Mark. For those of you that are not familiar, it's an 18-room accommodation. We also have a bar and a restaurant and a function room that seats 70 people. And it's predominantly a locals bar. It's at this bar that our community celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, special events, and also where they come to discuss local issues with each other and with us. And I believe I'm representing a great number of our community being here. I'd like to say also that I'm not against streetscaping in JUGIONG. It's a unique working village and offers a great deal to locals and tourists. Those that have done the streetscaping plan, though, need to also consider that we have a lot of truck traffic, stock movement, locals and tourists that need to be considered in any changes made to the existing road. For those that live in JUGIONG, the most frequented business in our village is the mobile service station on the northern end of Riverside Drive, as it acts as our post office and you need to travel there to pick up your mail. We don't have a postman. My problem with the streetscaping is that it's focused on a 300-metre stretch of Riverside Drive and HARDEN Road. In 2016, the JUGIONG community had a public meeting at the hall hosted by JAG and Hilltop Council. The community were invited to put forward ideas and a wish list for improvements, and one of those was that there should be a landscape and lighting plan for Riverside Drive between the Catholic Cemetery and the Lookout and HARDEN Road from the exit from the highway and the entry ramps, and that this should provide a basis for upgrading the margins of JUGIONG's main thoroughfares in the interests of the safety and amenity of visitors and the community and as a village beautification initiative. The utilisation rates of these roads by both cars and heavy vehicle continue to rise, and there is an emerging need for additional parking space at the intersection of Riverside Drive and HARDEN Road. This was discussed by the new JAG committee in 2017, and it was decided that we should ask the council to investigate having a specialist streetscaper to look at Riverside Drive and come up with ideas that would tie together the street lighting as requested in 2016, signage in JUGIONG, and address the weekend traffic congestion at the southern end of Riverside Drive. It was also mentioned that the streetscaper would discuss ideas with business owners in JUGIONG. As far as I know, they only discussed it with 2. The initial request by the community was for lighting from the northern end of the Catholic Cemetery to the Lookout and from the highway exit and entry ramps. This should be incorporated with the footpath and be the initial stage of streetscaping. The plans that have been presented, while beautiful, have not taken into consideration our local community. Rather the, and I quote, CBD of JUGIONG, which is amazing in a town of 120 that we have a CBD. There is no bus stop allowed for. The school bus regularly stops in the proposed streetscaped area. However, without a bus stop, there is nowhere for the kids to get on and off. Trucks delivering stop behind cars but off the road to do this. Again, there's no area. If the street becomes narrower as proposed, they can't stop, and I've been told by the drivers that they will not stop. They won't deliver. The number of new trees indicated in the design also appear to block out some of the businesses from the road and will create a great deal of shade on the only house in this area, and they're not happy. Surely JUGIONG would be better served having a pathway cycleway with solar lighting that leads down from the lookout and continues past the JUGIONG showground, where we already have an existing pathway, and along the eastern side of the road up to the Catholic cemetery. There's a wide strip of land that can accommodate this, and it's safer than the opposite side. This will also reduce the confusion of newcomers to JUGIONG who don't understand that the village continues past the motor inn for those coming from the north or past the park for those coming from the south. A lot of people that stay at the showground in caravans come to us for dinner, and we offer a pick-up and drop-off service as it's too dangerous for them to walk back, especially if they've had a few drinks with dinner. We also have a number of people stay with us that walk from the motor into the pub for dinner and drinks and then attempt the walk home with their mobile phone light for navigation. To amplify this point, we recently had an older guy staying with us, or having dinner with us, and he wanted to walk back to the showground rather than wait for his friends. And it was dark and it was foggy. I went and got my car and found him walking down the centre of the road. Had I not been looking for him, no one would have seen him before they hit him. And the only safe ground that's even is on the road, so you've got no option. So my big thing is, please understand the need for a pathway and lighting is a serious safety issue, and much more than we need trees in a beautification area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker open forum tonight is Craig Filmer, speaking on some development applications. Craig.
Mr Mayor, Councillors, Mr General Manager and Senior Staff, I represent my clients Larry and Dawn Logan of 1400 Wombat Road and their DAs. To say my clients are disappointed at the report is an understatement, more so from how it misunderstands Wombat Village and as well Harden's own former strategic LEP work. I wish to talk about the bigger themes that should form the basis of debate rather than dwell on the negative report. Clause 4.6 of all LEPs are there because town planning is not a perfect science. Clause 4.6 allows that which does not fit to receive consideration on merit. In preparing an LEP, strategies are prepared, zones and objectives are allocated, maps are drawn, permissibilities and prohibitions are put in place, and development is broadly shaped in these directions. Not everything will fit like a peg in a custom fit hole. On average, planning in the broader rural minimum lot size context is about the best all-round goal set for compliance. An LEP, especially with regards to rural lands, is two-dimensional, cannot be all things to all people. Not all land has the minimum lot size, nor fits into the classic prime agricultural classification. Some people have acres and acres of rocks, some have smaller holdings you can grow lollies in the soil. Some have neither the minimum nor the minimum lot size nor the agricultural potential. We agree, however, that the existing viable agriculture nearby should not be fragmented or affected. This application does neither. Sorry, lost without a lectern. The land in question is zoned RU1, and under the Harden LEP, a modern version of the 1976 IDO, and still represents the thinking of that day, and has a minimum lot size of 40 hectares, an area that is nonsensical to modern farming or viability. Each lot has its own title and has, since the Surveyor General his way through Wombat. These lots had huts on them during the parish plan phases. These lots are bounded by an arterial classified road on one side and a creek behind them in a long strip averaging 200 to 300 metres deep for 2.5 kilometres from the village. They are bordered by rural lifestyle blocks on the village end and behind, and the applicant's house and a few more houses before some scrub on the other end. The large viable agriculture is across the road and beyond, and behind and an argument has been that hay crop demonstrates the agricultural capabilities. In two serious efforts in the last 12 years, the owners yielded 24 round bales, which got them $50 a bale. That's a gross of $1,200, less seed, sowing, fertiliser, and the rest of the costs, and maybe they bought a TV with the proceeds. A 4-acre paddock does not get you much agriculture, it actually gets you more chance of getting into trouble. My clients wonder how doing nothing with land entirely usable for a better purpose, in a planning sense, can now be damned to be left useless. Is this a fair or wise use of land? The report author seems remarkably underinformed about Wombat, its culture and status. A first-time reader of the report before you would presume that the last person out of Wombat shortly will need to turn the lights off when they go. To paraphrase Council's own LEP consultants, Wombat is probably the most strategically positioned village in the Hilltop Shire to succeed. It is equidistant from Harden and Young. It is within context of Cootamundra and also beyond. It is a diverse village, split in two by the Olympic Highway and surrounded in broad context by orchards, Broadacre Farm, hobbyists, lifestylers and also villagers. It has the biggest village school in the wider region, a thriving pub come general store, churches, bric-a-brac, wine outlets, cherry outlets, mixed home businesses. People as wide as Kingsvale to almost Boundary Road to Coping Road and Alice Lemon Bridge call Wombat their village. In Harden Shire's effort to achieve a comprehensive LEP, GHD provided preliminary considerations and mentioned very positive attributes for the village. Further, it stated that Wombat has a unique opportunity for growth from people not seeking township living from the major centres nearby. Wombat has some RU5 zone land, some R5 zone land, and then the fringe is either existing uses from before 76 or quirks post 1976 IDO. An anomaly of land surrounding Wombat from 0 to 40 hectares was identified but unable to be dealt with due to council mergers. So on the big issues, let's leave big and intensive agriculture alone and not fragment or affect them. This application, tick. Let's support Wombat's growth via a range of lot sizes that reflect the diversity that is Wombat. This application, tick. Let's use land that's not viable for the zone to be better used to support rural style living with no foul and no harm. This application, again, tick. In summary, if it does not damage or affect fragment agriculture, if it is too geographically disadvantaged to play a wider role in agricultural use, if it is usable for an alternate without harm to the primary aims of the zone, and the legal power exists to do it, then let's be positive and do this.
Craig, you better wind it up, please.
I just seek your indulgence. I've got one more paragraph, Mr Mayor.
There you go.
The application has achieved concurrence of the Department of Planning in the two-step process. Why then has it not received local assent in line with the department? My client implores you to look at this objectively as possible and come up with a different outcome to that in front of you. More to the glass half full approach that my client put before council and that you most not likely have not had the ability to read, only the contra argument. We thank you for your time.
Okay, the next speaker tonight, speaking in regards to a tender on roadside pickup, is Mr Richard Abs. Richard.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to speak about a tender which was quite of interest to us as I was a local garbage contractor, skip bin operator, called Skip Bins. This tender took our eye because we wanted to see whether it involved our business or not. So reading many tenders as I had, I've been in business 20 years in other various businesses, development, earth moving as such. Read the tender and took quite an interest in the fact that about backyard businesses and things like that. Some of the compliance issues in the tender were that the company was who was successful to the tender was meant to provide an office, a premises, inspectable by the council at any time, and a wash bay where they could wash down their trucks, etc. And even though this tender didn't involve us because it didn't involve skip bins, it still involved us to the fact that approximately 16 years ago, my wife and I, we were on a sort of a backyard premises ourselves, and we received letters to the council to no end, and even when we were off that property, we were still threatened with letters of going to court and whatnot until we actually bought a premises. So this is why this interested us, because we're sick of it happening. The Mayor's well aware of it, so are many other councillors. This has cost our business hundreds of thousands of dollars in our eyes, as it costs us $60,000 to $80,000 to occupy that business premises every year. On around November last year, myself, John Horton, had a meeting with the former General Manager, Anthony McMahon. In that meeting, Anthony McMahon stated to us that the reasoning around this tender and some of the requirements of these things in the tender was to start work on that process to get businesses compliant. as had been stated in the previous General Manager, there was more than 60 backyard businesses in the town, which has significantly hurt business in this town, and we need jobs. Like, there's a lot of learning centres in town. We need jobs. I've grown up in business prior to this all my life, and I've shorn sheep, shoveled shit, I've done everything. And all we need is jobs, and all the focus is on this, tourism and stuff. It's not going to get us anywhere. Our kids can't even work alongside us. They've got to go to Canberra to work, or any other town. In this meeting, we'll get back to that, there's Mr Horton had obviously heard everything Anthony had to say, but, on that note, John, like, you haven't corresponded with me since then. At the receival of this tender, this company was still in a backyard, non-compliant, and still receiving the council contract. Council have not only not done anything about this, they're condoning it, and on a weekly basis, awarding contractual jobs to these businesses that are in rural residential subdivisions, wrecking our roads with trucks and B-doubles and all the rest of it. And then everyone's complaining about roads, and it's costing us money and costing us jobs, because the other hard-working people that have gone out there and bought a premises, put their life on the line of the day and what they'd had and worked for before that, and gone and spent $500,000 on a premises. And I know some others just recently, since in the 2 months that they've spent $500,000 on a premises, there's been 4 other businesses pop up in backyards just like theirs. Something needs to be done about it. I urge Council to have a look at the tender and refer to points 2210, 2211, 91, 44E, 4-1 and 1-7. And then have a look at your code of conduct. This has cost us our business. Yet again, we've just had to sell our business and reduce it down to a third of its size, when it was a growing business before this. There's little silver bins popping up in everyone's backyards, and for a price that we can't even dump it at the tip for. A multinational company, over $690 million last year. Thanks a lot. Refer to 2.3.1 in fair and honest dealings in the Council's Code of Conduct. It is important that Council officers protect the commercial interests of all existing and potential contractors or suppliers. Take a leaf from your own book and have a look. Even though there might not be something wrong with backyard businesses or home businesses, if they put in a DA, and if it's a small business that complies with the council standards, fine, fair. But you can't start off with a corner store and end up with a supermarket. There's a place for those businesses.
You've got to wind up, mate. Your time's
I know.
about. Yep, thank you.
Well, I didn't get it all out, but thanks for your time, and please take these facts into consideration. Thank you.
Shall we come to item 4 on the agenda, which is apologies. I believe everyone's present. Any apologies from any staff members? No. No apologies. Could we all please be upstanding for the expressions of sympathy? We express our sympathy on the passing of Amy Morgan, Sheila Lincoln, Patricia Trish Croker, Donald Brown, Brian Foley, Robert Johnson, Alfreda Sava, Raymond Lenane, Annette Pearce, Joan Spring, Frank Hansen, Mervyn Potts, Walter Gardner, Gregory Mason, Almira Coddington, Kenneth Smith, Jean Griffiths, Margaret Hislop, Kevin Balls and Douglas Driver. Moment silence, please. Thank you, everybody. So that takes us to item 6 on the agenda, and that's the confirmation of the minutes from the last ordinary meeting of council. Do I have someone to move? Councillor Wallace, thank you.
Happy to second.
Seconded Councillor Tuckerman, thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. The next confirmation of minutes of the extraordinary meeting that was held. Have I moved it? Moved Councillor Flannery, thank you. Seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Again, so be it, thank you. Brings me to item 7. Councillor O'Connor.
Just checking when we would expect that report to be tabled that came out of a recommendation from the extraordinary meeting.
That report in consultation will be done and will be presented to council at next month's council meeting. I returned from overseas and the business paper was closing and I haven't had time, and I have to consult with a couple of councillors just to see what they expect to be in that actual report. Maybe I'll get a couple to write it for me and help me. But it'll be present in some form at next month's next month's ordinary meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we're up to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a declaration on 18/105, a deed of agreement between Hilltops and Bronzy Bill the Bastard. It's a non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester.
I have the same interest, non-pecuniary.
Thank you. So we go to reports, and the Mayor's diary, as it is since his return, has been handed to councillors by hand. The business paper closed. I've done that up. You can see where I've been. The one thing I would note on that report is that I attended as a guest judge the Dancing with the Stars of Young, who was a fundraiser for cancer. It's taken the place of Relay for Life. A great success, a great night. The capacity crowd, they raised $60,000. It was a monumental effort. They tell me they had a practice night on the Wednesday night and they had 250 people attend the practice night. So all goes well for that event being a yearly event, and the young lady from Wagga, who was the chief organiser of that, did a great job, and everyone there had a great time. So that was I thought, worth of a mention to the people that were involved in that, and the people who were the stars, who did the dancing, who put themselves up on a stage in front of a large number of our community. I take my hat off to them. Judging was a lot easier than being up on stage, and it's probably well with the 2 left feet that I have. The next thing I'll touch on before I go to councillor's report, I'll deal with the mayoral minute that I was made aware of, and I'll hand over to the General Manager to deal with that.
Okay. For you, there's a recommendation that because there's a casual vacancy in the association, the local government, New South Wales Local Government Association board, that they will have to do that by postal ballot. We have to nominate 2 voting delegates to actually participate in the ballot, and and also actually provide advice on what the method of means and show. But I think the show of hands is actually for here. Yes, it's a vote by show of hands in the council chamber, whoever the 2 voting delegates will be.
So councillors, you can see that we need 2 councillors to have delegation to vote for the position on that board. At the annual conference, when we attend that, Hilltops Council only had 2 votes to vote at that time, and the person attending normally is delegated those rights. This year it was myself and Councillor Stadmiller. This being a secret posted ballot.
It's actually a postal ballot.
There'll be a postal ballot. That's me. Yep. So we need to delegate 2 councillors to do that voting. Any nominations or suggestions?
Mr Mayor, I move the recommendation and I'd like to nominate yourself and the Deputy Mayor for the voting delegates.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tuckman. It's seconded by Councillor Flannery. Thank you. Is there any other nominations or discussion? If not, I'll put that recommendation of Councillor Tuckman's and seconded by Councillor Flannery. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. So then we'll go to the councillors' report. Start with Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My monthly report for June 2018. I attended the Local Health Advisory Committee hospital meeting in HARDEN. The LEAP graduation day that was put on for apprentices to give them their certificate for all the work they put into deciding what they'd like to do with their career, their goals, to achieve that, and what disappointments they might encounter on the way and how they would handle that. GALONG workshop meeting, advancement meeting with JAG and JUGIONG, library funding announcement at Young, Night Festival meeting with Melbourne Court in MURRUMBURRAH, General Manager recruitment meeting with Mark Anderson at Young, Hilltops Cultural, Education and Community Precinct meeting at Young, Councillors Library Schedule workshop meeting in Young, Census updated training refresher at Young, another Local Health Advisory Committee meeting in MURRUMBURRAH Harden Hospital, Regional Tourism meeting in Harden, and Rotary Club Rotary Club and the Country Club changeover dinner, and two other Rotary Club dinner meetings in June. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Meetings as minuted. There are three that I'd like to talk about. Just John.
Oh, it's got, it says off.
No, do it the other way. Meetings as minuted. We're right now. Meetings as minuted. There are three that I'd like to talk to this evening. The first one, I had a morning with Year 7 and 8 boys from Young High School who came down to the council chambers to learn about how council worked. We had a great morning and it resulted in an email being sent to the council with requests for information and also concerns and a list of what they thought we should have in the community of Hilltops, which in itself was very interesting, and perhaps we should take note of some of those. At the moment, their concerns are being investigated and a letter will be sent to them in return for their interest shown, because I think it's really important that we encourage the younger members of our community to be involved and interested in what goes on. The second one that I was involved with is the Hilltops Innovation Network. And there was a working day putting together an application for a grant that will see this Hilltops Innovation Network come into being. We also went and had a look at the premises that the council has kindly offered that can be used as a working space for startups, especially those with an international focus that will be based in Hilltops region. An exciting concept, and we'll certainly hear more about it. And the last one, I have, unbeknownst to myself, become a member of the BBC, which is the MURRUMBURRAH Business Council. And to my amazement, I am thoroughly enjoying being a part of that business council and coming to know people and interests and concerns in another part of this Hilltops community. And I'd encourage all councillors to make sure that they become aware of the concerns and the interests and what is going on in the business areas right throughout the Hilltops. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'll just hold that down. Mr Mayor, I fielded a number of concerns from constituents regarding alleged backyard businesses during the last month. I attended the Harden Country Club unveiling of the concept plans for the new development up there. I fielded a meeting from an older lady of the community who represents a general exercise group. They were previously funded $1,500 during the last financial year, and this year have only been funded $500, which means that their instructor, who travels from Cootamundra and who is already only just covering the cost of fuel, is now no longer being able to get to Harden and to continue working with those ladies, which is something I'd like to address further in the meeting. I also had discussions with Young Greyhound Club regarding their level of rates, which is $6,000 and appears to remain that way going into the budget. I had another meeting with Joe Kinsella at the Young Museum and a tour of Carrington Park, and it was explained to me the heritage value further in the issues which may arise from a joint venture with Young High School and the footprint on Carrington Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Meetings as minuted, and other than that, press conference, workshops, etc. I've no idea, 10 possibly? I'd say this month probably about 30% of what Councillor Horton attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Manchester.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Meetings as minuted, Subalco Liaison Committee meeting, Murrumburrah Precinct meeting by 2, Traffic Committee and Access Committee meetings at Young. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Meetings as minuted, but there's a couple of highlights that I'd like to bring to the attention of Council. On the 25th of May, I attended a climate conversation event held in Yass, which was organised by the Hovels Creek and Burra Community Land Care groups, as well as the Yass Area Network of Land Care. It was also supported by local land services, Rivers of Carbon and others in the southeast of New South Wales. Over 220 farmers, students and community heard from a great lineup of speakers, including Monaro farmer and award-winning Charles Massey, Ngunnawal elder Wally Bell, climate expert Bradley Obdyke, internationally renowned soil scientist Christine Jones, and a local mentor and inspirator, Siwan Lovett. It was no surprise to the Land Care Organising Committee to get such a large turnout to this event, not only because of the calibre of the speakers, but of the growing interest and desire in the land care community to take action on climate change through regenerative agriculture. So I'd like to congratulate all those groups who certainly held an amazing event. I'd also like to speak on, I attended St Joseph's Primary School, a public speaking forum, and unfortunately I was the judge, which was probably one of the most difficult tasks that I've done this year. It was certainly a credit to the school and the importance that they place on public speaking, and I'd like to congratulate all those speakers that will be progressing to the next round. I would also like to just talk on my meeting of the Lifespan Project community. I know the Executive Director of Community Corporate received information regarding suicide prevention online training, and I'd like to make sure or suggest that the council staff undertake this training. It's 60 minutes online, and I think it's certainly a worthwhile thing to support, and I certainly would like to suggest that that does happen. I don't know whether it will happen, but it would be terrific. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a few meetings of the HARDEN Visitor Information Centre, the new centre that's it's in the process of opening. It was my privilege to judge the student library competition entries. They were wonderful. There were some that were written and some that were pictorial, and there was a real diversity. It was wonderful to see such thinking. I went to a Murrumbidgee Local Health Board meeting with the Local Health Advisory meeting at the hospital in HARDEN and the Galong Village meeting. I would actually like to send a community recognition award to Murrumburrah High School for completing their third LEAP graduation. LEAP stands for Learn, Engage, Aspire and Perform, and John Horton and I had a great morning with these kids who showed us what they are aspiring to. LEAP has been facilitated at Murrumburrah High by Compact, a non-for-profit group in Wagga, and it connects families, schools, community and the workplace. So, that's a great job, and it gives kids a bit more clarity about where they want to go. I went to the announcement of the Arts and Cultural Precinct grant, and then that night to the JUGIONG Advancement Group meeting, the General Manager's recruitment meeting, the first off. Spent the afternoon in Binalong at the Coppabella Community Consultative Committee, and the councillors' workshop for the Arts and Cultural Precinct, and then last night at the first Regional Tourism Committee meeting. And unfortunately can't go to the unveiling of the Country Club plans tonight, which is at 6:30 at the Country Club.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Walker. I just might mention before you start, Councillor O'Connor, have you got something written for staff in that? Yep, okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Meetings is minuted, plus a couple of I'd like to draw to Council's attention. First of all, on your behalf, a dinner hosted by the Cherry Growers and New South Wales Department of Industry Association on the 31st of May to launch the negotiations and trade between 17 potential traders in Shanghai of wholesalers, importers of cherries directly into China this year. A great outcome for an industry that has been working very hard for many, many years to achieve this, and I compliment them. On behalf of Council, I welcome the delegation to Young, based on the history and the Cherry Festival and the many activities we have to celebrate the unity between that industry and the community. And it's important to remind Council that we remain vigilant in our role on the control of fruit fly within the Hilltops region. The other thing I'd like to, as far as community recognition, is to nominate Emma Suter-Clark to be recognised for her outstanding achievement on being one of 5 Army cadets throughout Australia to be awarded a trip to the Battle of Amiens commemorations in France later this year, in recognition for her contribution within the Australian Army Cadets. Army Cadet Sergeant Emma Suter-Clark, as she is, has demonstrated outstanding leadership, teamwork, youth training skills as part of the young cadet unit to achieve this award. And that's all I have at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meetings as minuted. I went to the practice night of Dancing with the Stars, which was a fantastic night. Congratulations to all those participants. It was really quite a fun night. I wasn't able to get to the Friday night. Murrumburrah Precinct meeting, Galong workshop and Burrawa showground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. And just a couple of things I might mention. Firstly, Councillor Flannery mentioned he was there Wednesday. He was one of many generous donors towards that fundraising that was raised on Friday night, and the community passed on their thanks to Councillor Flannery and his family. The other thank you I have is for Councillor Walker and also Councillor Wallace and any other councillor who stepped in and filled a role for the Mayor while I was away for my 3 weeks. So I appreciate it and thank you very much. Okay, we go to the... Someone like to move those reports be accepted?
I'll move it.
Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you very much. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, so be it. Takes us to the Acting General Manager's report, I believe.
Report number 18102. Change of meeting dates. In April 2019, the council meeting falls between the echoes in the chamber. And, yeah, I think I need to bring this closer and away from the speaker overhead. We need to change the meeting date to because the Anzac Day falls on pretty well the day, so we need to actually provide another date for the meeting. And also we're also looking to provide for the extraordinary meeting on the 8th of May, which is planning well ahead, for the launch of the budget and for public exhibition and the actually there's something else that's IPR as well, I would think.
Thank you. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Rolls. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18103.
Adoption of the integrated planning and reporting document. The purpose of this report is to present to the Hilltops Council the integrated planning and reporting suite of documents. And it's quite a large suite of documents that you've been given. The public have been invited to make comment and submissions on the documents during the exhibition period. No community submissions were received. However, the staff, in reviewing the document in this period, have put forward some recommendations for inclusion in the document, and they are the dot points on the first page. Going over to the next page, it's recommending for the Council adopt the delivery program, operational plan and associated budget, revenue policy, fees and charges. With the fees and charges, we have an addendum, which...
Through the Mayor, yes, we revised earlier this month, so after the publication of the fees and charges, that the companion animals fees, as set by the Department of Local Government, will increase. So that has been circulated to you on page 2 of the document. It's been circulated. The top of page 2 shows those increasing fees. They're minor, ranging from $2 up to $6, but they weren't included in our fees and charges, and it's recommended that Council include these in the fees and charges when they're adopting current fees and charges.
Thank you for that, Director. So the recommendation there is in front of us, Council, in regard to that item. Move Councillor Manchester. Seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you.
Can I suggest that we actually just make the addendum to the dot point, number 1 and first dot point, fees and charges as amended.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, a couple of questions.
Councillor Flannery.
If I may, a question for Judy. Given it was in the local press a fortnight ago about a 38% and 50% rise in rates and fees and charges, Judy, would you mind just providing the calculations on which the 10-year plan is based? Because I imagine it's pretty straightforward. It's based on the rate peg plus then the CPI of 2.5%, but it's always a bit of a concern when you see alarmist statements in the press.
It is based on the rate peg, and we estimate that to continue. And there's also an estimation for growth. So whilst the income increases by 38, that's not an increase on an individual assessment. There is growth in areas, and so your income increases with that growth as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, it certainly does for my purposes. I do note, however, that the inflation figures on wages are very low. There does seem to be a disproportionate increase to income as opposed to expenditure. Is there a reason for that?
Wages are controlled by the award, so they've increased by 2.5. Rates have increased by 2.3.
I think if you look at the table, though, for the 10-year plan, wages are not increasing. There's only about $1 million increase there, or $1.9 million over 10 years.
I'll have to take it on notice and have a look at it, Tony. Wages aren't all... That's operational wages include there. Any capital wages are not included in that sheet. They're included in the capital portion. So it's not always a great indication of what the wages are for the whole of council. If staff are working on capital works, their wages aren't included in that numbers.
Could we get, for the next meeting, just a clarification on the figures that are used? I just think it's good for transparency, which can then provide a basis for general discussion in the community, please.
Yep, we can provide those.
Another question, or probably a statement to the Mayor, given the Mayor's comments on radio before he left to go away for a brief period. There was comments about Harden Young having to absorb the debts of Harden and Young, and that's why it's going to take longer to get back into surplus. Could you please explain that with reference to the table in the budget, which highlights the debts of Young relative to Harden and MURRUMBURRAH? I certainly don't think it should even be a discussion point, but it offended many, and I think it needs illumination or an apology.
Councillor Flannery, thanks for that question. I believe the question was put to me that council would be in deficit and would be in deficit for a period of a couple of years in front of us. And I believe my answer was, yes, that is correct. And when you have a council going in that had a slight surplus and two councils that had a deficit, it would take a while to work that out. I believe, to the best of my recollection, that is how I answered that question. I don't believe I termed it or said it in a derogatory way to any former council at all. If offence has been taken, I do apologise, Councillor Flannery. None was intended. All I was doing was stating a simple fact. I don't wish to sit here and be involved in those type of discussions with that basis. I'm happy to take it up with you offline and have a discussion, but if you were offended or any other person was offended, I take it back. It wasn't meant to be said to offend anyone. It was simple a statement of fact. Thank you.
Well, offence certainly did occur, so it probably needs further clarification. And if you look at the loan table on 62 and 63, it paints a very different picture.
Unfortunately, I'm going to work on going forward. At the moment, we're back to the budget item in front of us. Councillor Wallace?
I'll make a quick comment before we put the vote. Mr Mayor, just that given the absence of any public submissions, I think it's time to commend the staff on putting together an excellent budget. And $67 million income and not one question. I think it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wallace, and I'm sure staff will appreciate the praise and the thank you. There was a pretty arduous process getting to where we got to, and we were behind the eight ball for a while, but staff worked very hard to catch up and make up that time frame, and as you just say, it's been out on the community for comment, and not one comment came back in, so I will take that as a positive and presume that the community has faith to lead into the future, so thank you for that. If there's no further comments or questions, Councillor Walker.
Question, if I may. That link that we just received on increase of companion animal registration fees, we accept that that's part of it now?
We did. Yep, that's noted in the first stop point. Thank you.
Question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
The council's received correspondence from the New South Wales Public Libraries Association drawing its attention to the 18% reduction in funding for public libraries. I was just wondering whether that 18% reduction has been factored into the 10-year financial plan.
I suggest staff will have to take that on notice. Councillor Armstrong. there's no further questions or
Sorry,
comments?
just one more question for Judy, if I may. Judy, on page 17 of the... it refers to the Galong Road FCR. There's a budget allocation of 4.9 million. Has that been received or is it committed?
Thank you for that. And just for clarification, Councillor Flannery, that the subject I mentioned that you brought up had nothing to do with debt. It had to do with deficit and surplus of the budget. And thank you for that. Okay. So we've got a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? Carried. Thank you. So voted. Next item, we'll get the machines working again, is 18104.
Acceptance of the Regional Cultural Grant.
Mr Mayor, may I ask a question, please?
No, Councillor Stadmiller.
I believe we received an email from the Director of Corporate and Community stating that the notice of motion, which I put in the business paper, may be moved back in front of the reports, as has occurred in every other single council meeting that we've had since Hilltops was formed. I'm just wondering why we're not dealing with that now, and it's still going to remain where it is on 18126.
I'm not probably qualified to speak on that. I know that the notice of motion was received late in relation to the paper, but I believe it was entered into the paper because it related to an item that, in the same instance, as to where it sits in the business paper, I'd have to hand over to staff on that matter.
So it's like you can receive a motion from the floor to actually have it brought forward, and the council votes to actually accept that. And it's the way the normal method that items are brought forward.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. I'll be happy to do that. I just would like to inquire...
Point of order, Mr Mayor. Begun the reports. The General Manager has started his report, and I think we're out of sync.
We are, Councillor Tuckerman, and that was the point I was going to get to. I alluded to Councillor Stadmiller that it was late coming into the paper, but it was added to the paper because it was deemed relevant by staff, and that's the way it's done, and my job is to run the meeting as it's sitting in front of us, and we've started the General Manager's report and we're into it, and that's the way it'll run tonight.
Mr Mayor, just one more comment from me, if I may.
Councillor Stadmiller.
We seem to receive reports right up until 5 minutes within starting meetings on a regular basis since September, so I don't see why we couldn't give the community an opportunity to have this put before them. The first point on the agenda will be to either accept or refuse the Regional Cultural Grant, which will make that notice of motion redundant.
I believe we have to deal with what's in front of us in the present order, and if we get to that point, we will deal with your notice of motion on its merit at that time, Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you.
Right, the purpose of this report is following the workshop held on the 20th of June. The recommendation was put forward by the councillors present, as per in the business paper here, that we accept the Regional Cultural Fund grant of $3 million for the joint use facility with Young High School, thereby acknowledging the joint use facility as the site for the new Young Public Library, and delegate to the General Manager to begin negotiations on the heads of agreement for the facility.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak to the recommendation, if I may.
We're going to have a mover and seconder of the recommendation before we start proceedings, I think. But Councillor O'Connor to move that recommendation. Councillor Wallace to second it. Councillor O'Connor, would you like to speak to your...
I'm quite happy for Councillor Horton to speak first. I'll just
Thank
keep
you,
my
Councillor.
side of the reply.
Is this turned on? My vision is the great Hilltops Council and the New South Wales Department of Education have the vision and the desire to be a leader in innovation by providing something new for future generations. The new Cultural Community and Education Precinct in Young is a magnificent legacy that our inaugural Hilltops Council can leave to the future and present generations. There are always those who do not share the view of the majority. The Sydney Opera House is a good example. Not many of you here can go back to those years, but I can. And the council wanted to build an opera house on the shores of the harbour in Sydney. And there were protesters, not just thousands, there were hundreds of thousands of protesters. It'll spoil the harbour view. Being built on Aboriginal land, no parking on Bennelong Point, bad access for residents, not needed, noisy, congestion and so on. Sound familiar? The Opera House became a beautiful, functional and worldwide icon, and I'm sure that we all agree with that. The visionaries have been proven correct, and I too believe that the new library shall have the same positive outcome for Hilltops. The Young Witness front page of last week displayed the latest survey results and showed 63% of the survey those surveyed were in favour of the proposed location and the proposed precinct being developed. The tide of public opinion is turning dramatically in favour of the proposal it reported. Parks are not utilised to the same extent as they were in the 1940s and 50s and 60s. I can remember in 1940, when I was a 4-year-old boy, and I lived with my grandparents on a little property outside Bungendore. And Queanbeyan was exactly like Harden. It's one of the reasons I love living here and why I came here. Same number of people. Canberra was in its infancy. There was virtually no shopping there. And Goulburn was where you went to shop. And that's what we did once a month, the big shop in Goulburn. We'd leave Bungendore and we'd get to the park in Goulburn. And it'd be about 9:45. My grandfather would take out the rug and look for a spot to put the rug on the lawn. There were hundreds of people there. Sounds unbelievable, but that's the fact. We'd have our morning tea, we'd do a bit of shopping, we'd meet back there for lunch, and we'd go and look for another spot to put the rug on that beautiful park that still exists in Goulburn. And the same would happen for afternoon tea, and then we'd come home. And councillors, the reason that we don't do that anymore is pretty simple. In those days, when you went from Young to Goulburn, or from anywhere to Goulburn, there were no petrol stations on the way with cafeterias or restaurants. When you got to Goulburn, there were no clubs. There were no restaurants. There were 2 cafes, the Paragon and some other one, and you couldn't get into them. You didn't have Kentucky Fried. You didn't have Red Rooster or McDonald's. On Sunday in that park, the Goulburn Municipal Band used to provide music, and the park again was packed. That doesn't happen anymore. Times change. But still, we need parks, and they are beautiful. You certainly need a park in New York or Sydney or the big cities. We live in a park. The Hilltops is a park. But it is great to have that park and to utilise it. I've been here nearly 9 years, Mr Mayor, and I travelled to Young, I would say, on average once a week. Just prior to running for the election to become a councillor, I was approached by different people about the library in Carrington Park. And I didn't know where Carrington Park was, to be honest. I thought I knew. Turns out I drove past it a couple of times a week. So I took it upon myself to find out about Carrington Park, and I spent 7 days at that park, about 2 hours a day, Monday to Sunday, different days in the week, to get a good perspective. The thing that I noticed is every time I went there, I could park at the foot of the steps that walked up into the park. When I went up into that park, the most beautiful building, the big beautiful building there, nothing better than it in the Hilltops. And then next to it, 2 prefab classrooms. 2 prefab classrooms. Spoilt the whole beautiful setting in my mind. On those 7 days, the most I saw in that park over a 2-hour period were 4 people, including myself. One day, with one exception, with one day which I'll come to, one Saturday. One day there were just 2 young lovers sitting on a rug. They were obviously, to me, they were honeymooners, and they were passing through. They found the park there. On a Saturday, there were about 25 people at the little playground where the little kids play. was a little birthday party, and that looked good, but they utilised virtually nothing of the park. They just stayed in around where the swings were and where the toilets were. So I then decided to see, I got a car park easy. I thought I'll see how many are available. I counted on every day between 27 and 31 car parks, mainly in front of Hennessy, the Catholic Church, in along there. Now, there was not a funeral on and there was not a wedding on any of those days, and of course it would be packed out when that happened. Although we all want to see more details about where the buildings of the projects, or our building is exactly positioned, what it will look like and how it will work, we need to understand that the concerns of our community are being listened to, and great care is being taken to all the necessary studies first, before any decisions about final placement and look of the building can be considered. We are listening to our community. A comprehensive heritage study has to be compiled, and a traffic and parking study is being undertaken. When these are completed, the architects can start drawing up sketches, and our community will have the opportunity to give feedback, just like Burrinjong Creek and Murrumburrah Precinct projects recently. So let us be positive. The positives outweigh the negatives. Show some vision. Accept the Regional Cultural Fund grant of $3 million and make it happen. And I just conclude by saying I'm very happy to sign the agreement, subject to this document having been vetted by our solicitors and approved, given their approval for council to sign it as being intact and 100% looking after the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Any other speakers in regard to for or against this? Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually in support of the project because I believe that this council, one of the things that this council has to do is not just look for the current generation, but the generations ahead of it. And clearly, this project has the potential to impact many generations, not just the current one. However, I'm unable to support the execution of this document tonight. The document is clearly in error. There appears to be some significant difference in the description of the project between the initial application that was made and the final application, and certainly what we received. I note that at the recent steering committee meeting, the Mayor indicated that he was unable to provide details of whether the funding was tied or not, because there were no details, but I am informed that those details were received approximately 5 hours prior to that meeting. The Mayor, I'm advised, was not informed until the next day. Can you confirm that you wanted not informed until the next day until the strings attached to it?
I can clarify that matter. That's exactly correct. I spoke in good faith when I spoke at the steering committee meeting on the Tuesday night after my return, to be informed the next day, later the next day, after I'd spoke again on radio, that the council had held information that was contrary to what I was saying. When I found that out, I went straight back on radio and informed the community of what I'd been made aware of. In light of that, I might just add that I have received, and I believe councillors may have received, some correspondence indicating that they feel that council deceived the public. I just want to reassure and say just one more time, in no way, shape or form that am I aware of any councillor in this room or myself have deceived the public in any way. The information that I was relayed straight onto the community as soon as I became aware of it. The matters of how I became aware of it will be dealt with by council, not the community. But the community can be rest assured that the 11 councillors sitting in this room, their integrity is in place Thank you for the question, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, I've just one more. I draw your attention and also Council's attention to page 22, Schedule A of the agreement, and I note there that the recipient is clearly identified as Hilltops Council. I also note item 3, funding details. The funding amount is an amount of $3 million, and immediately below that the recipient contribution is an amount of $29 million. Is Council contributing $29 million to this project?
I know the answer to that. It was picked up in the paperwork, and I'll hand to the General Manager to speak to it.
We've been reviewing the agreement and we've come across a number of errors. Our contribution is $6.5 million. I've had that confirmed with the Office of Cultural, whatever, I can't think of the name of it anyway. Sorry. It's Department of Planning, but there's our contribution is 6.5. The agreement will be changed to actually reflect that, and also the status. I've also, for the council's benefit, I've actually received confirmation from the email that the council will now be given up until the 1st of August to actually respond to the application, not the 3rd of July as written in the current document.
Mr Mayor, if I maybe indulge just one more time. Sorry, Councillor Rolls, I do apologise. Clause 17, variation, on page number 16. Is there opportunity, bearing in mind that Council has not made a decision in regard to citing of this, and I stress that the application appears to preempt that decision fairly well. But I note that Council has not made a decision in regard to the citing of this project. Is there opportunity for Council to seek variation under Clause 17 to have the conditions varied such that it is no longer tied to that location?
I sought clarification on that this afternoon, well, today actually. Sorry, someone's on. The council is able to make a claim for a variation for the project. However, the advice I received was that if it was a substantial change from the application in terms of what was in the front part of the application, it would mean that it could be invalid in the sense that it's not for the actual application that was made, and that they would actually consider in the next round of funding the council could make an application for funding towards a standalone facility.
Any Councillor Rolls?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to support Councillor Gordon on his vision for moving forward.
if I hold it down. Is that better? There you go. That better? Okay. I envisage this new building as opening out into the section of the park that's not often used. It's making an area that's largely overlooked into a friendly, inviting green space. This space does not intrude into the traditional heritage area of the park, but leads the eye and the person to explore and enjoy all of Carrington Park. And I also thought of the plantings that will be part of the landscaping and the added bonus of access to the courthouse and extended lawn of the school outside of school hours, which presently is behind bars all the time. And my vision is that the footprint of Carrington Park will be extended for all to enjoy and take us into this 21st century, knowing that we have left a positive heritage for the years to come. And of course, I'm also enthusiastic about the opportunities that this joint facility can offer, just as Councillor Armstrong has said. Especially for me as a past high school teacher, for that group of our Hilltops residents who are often overlooked, the teenagers and young adults. For the first time, they'll be able to access curriculum material and resources all the time outside school hours. And surely, as part of our brief of the councillors, it's to encourage lifelong learning, and this is certainly one way that we can encourage it. As Councillor O'Connor pointed out to me, that over 1,000 secondary students have access to that park every day, every week. She'll be president next, don't worry. Our present library, and I'm going to say a term that I'm not sure everybody will agree with, but I see it as tucked away in a side street. It's not out there for everyone to see. I do not see our present library as ever being able to meet the evolving concept of a 21st community centre and learning centre. So as a councillor, I feel that a joint use library with its footprint on the southern side of Carrington Park, adjoining Young High School, will add to the heritage value of the park and open the park for all to enjoy and add to the well-being and to the future of our Hilltops region. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I support the comments of Councillor Rolls and Councillor Horton in particular, but I do share the concerns of Councillor Armstrong. So, firstly, a question, is it possible to defer this decision till the July meeting? I think it's a no-brainer that we accept it, but I do think there are issues that we need clarification on. So is that an option?
I spoke with the relative people late this afternoon when I found out the information, and have been assured, and it's in writing, that the matter doesn't have to be dealt with or responded to, I should say, until the 1st of August. That time frame that I only found out today from the correspondence last week was originally the 3rd of July. The department people we spoke to, as I said, have assured that they were happy to push that out to the 1st of August to give council time if they needed to gather some more information and work on maybe a draft heads of agreement to make a decision and then respond to the department by the 1st of August, I believe. And that's fact.
Can I just add to that, though, it is critical that we actually continue negotiation on the heads of agreement for the facility.
I think that would be the basis of deferring it, that we continue negotiation. I think it's dangerous, to say the least, to enter into, well, certainly to pass a motion that you accept this amount of money without knowing what the boundaries are that you're working in. And we don't have to look very far down the track of history to know that we were amalgamated and promised $5 million for the amalgamation process. We're $2.5 million short, and we've got no answer from the state government as to where or when we're going to get that money, despite the fact that they've just handed down a budget and they're handing out billions of dollars. A lot of it to very unnecessary stadia. That said, education is the gateway to people improving their lifestyle. It's something that no one can ever take from you. If you're a female and you're educated, it's something your husband or partner can never take from you. It's something that gets people up the chain of life, and it is something that we should do everything we can to support. I don't believe specifically it's council's role to provide educational facilities, but it's certainly council's role to help meet those ends. We can't hope to have an educated youth that want to be proud of this town and this district if they're not proud of the resources in which they can grow and be nurtured. It does concern me that the council would look at funding a facility that is out of the CBD and out of what we all know is an ageing population and might have access problems. I think that needs to be front and centre of how we address it. I think a good educational facility / library, as can be found in many towns, particularly in metropolitan and bigger regional areas, do become a hub of the community, and they're often in beautified areas. They're overlooking parks, they're overlooking lakes. There's many instances, and they become places where people gather. So to that end, I think we have picked a good site, and I think there are some pretty horrible buildings there that could be removed. I think it would provide prosperity for the whole region. So to look upon it as what's Young getting and Harden and MURRUMBURRAH aren't, I think is a very negative way of looking at it. As an employer, one of the key things I find trying to get young families to the district is what educational opportunities are out there for the families. Families flock to Wagga, Griffith, Orange, Dubbo because of the educational opportunities, in particular Orange. It's really seen as an educational hub, Armidale likewise. And I think for the Hilltops region to prosper, an educational precinct is something that would really kick things along. Having said that, I think council has erred in its support of businesses that will employ people. It's all well and good to have these facilities, but to continually make decisions, or to make, I shouldn't say continually, to make decisions that have been detrimental to the growth of businesses in and around this district, and I can think of one significant one prior to the election, that if you want to get young people and young families to the town, you have to accept both sides of the knife. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But only thinking you're going to get teddy bear factories in this region is simply fanciful. If you want a beautiful educational facility, you've got to put up with some of the down aspects of what will provide families bread and butter to put their kids into school. And I think that needs to be considered long and hard. We had Richard Apps get up here and speak, and many of his points are very relevant. If you're going to knock down businesses, you need to be consistent, you need to have a level playing field, and you need to support those who want to invest their money. I believe council should give consideration to deferring this to the next meeting. It would need a mover and a seconder. I'm happy to move it so that we can get a heads of agreement that reflects the concerns that are in the community. I haven't seen 1 minute come here from the workshop group, so I'm not part of that workshop group. I don't know what the issues are that have been raised, and it certainly hasn't come to council yet. So I think it's incumbent upon us to defer this to the July meeting. We need to make a decision. We need to accept this money, but we need to know the guidelines upon which we are accepting the money. So I would like to move that we defer it to July, subject to the heads of agreement being more accurately reflected what we're investing in. Just one other question. It's noted we're contributing $6.5 million. Given we've got $2 million from the Stronger Communities and a proposed loan funding of 1.5, I assume this other $3 million is our contribution. Okay, thank you. That's correct. Sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking around the table, I think I can safely guess I was probably the last person to finish secondary school here, and I did that in about 2001. I was at Trinity Catholic School up here in Harden when it basically closed down and left students whose parents were seeking a Catholic education for their children at the time no option. I've been to the Young Library all through my teenage years. It has changed little in that time between I was a teenager and my current age now. There's rising damp issues. There looks to be rot there in some of the woodwork, and it's desperately in need of a replacement. I'm a little bit upset with the way that this process has worked out. I don't believe that we have properly or fully entertained any other library site in Young to the extent that we have with this one. And if I can just go into my iPad very quickly, even to the point where it says option 1, new standalone library facility to be developed by council at a new site, and in brackets there's the word undetermined. So if we aren't going to properly look at a number of sites and see whether we want to do a standalone library based on the community's input, I'm actually quite offended by us being at this stage now. $3 million is great. It's great to see investment in education. I also went on after finishing high school to travel to the University of Canberra and Charles Sturt University in Wagga, over an hour and a half at times to each uni. I finished off doing a Bachelor of Arts in Television Production at Wagga at CSU, where I drove down 3 days a week for 25 weeks of the year for 3 years to complete that, so I could remain living in Harden. So a facility at Young, which would be far closer than Wagga, would be good if it can be a facility that will meet the community's expectations. If we get a country university that offers half a subject or one subject and it doesn't fulfil that for the students, what is the point in the investment? If we are going to do it, we need to do it properly, but as a council, we're already in the red. I don't know where we're going to get this money to fund it, and I don't know what the ongoing costs are at this stage, and that worries me. Thank you.
Yeah, Yep. I have a few concerns, and I'll say on the onset, I greatly appreciate the plain, honest and open language that's been used in the debate on both sides in this submission. That is the way things have always been done in the country, and it's a healthy way. But I consider myself negligent in due diligence if I accept this the way it is. We're talking about a plan, and we're talking about... Is it on? Talking about a plan, and we're talking about modern education. Now, I've been in designing and building all my life. I run a business on it, not building buildings, but building other things. And if I couldn't get a concept up in 3 dimension within a few hours, and we're talking about modern technology, modern people, modern schooling, modern everything, and yet at no time have we come up with a concept that we could have a look at. I'd say everyone in this room would have a different concept of what this idea is all about. We'd have a different picture in our heads. I know I'm looking at for example, I know there has to be a need, according to Libraries New South Wales, for decent car parking and access. Now, if I know at the current concept, for a start, there's more than one footprint. To say that we stood on the footprint's wonderful, but which footprint? And then we say the footprints can be moved anywhere. But I'd like to see where the car park's going. I can see for a public library we need clean open space for public safety, and I would consider myself negligent if I made a decision before I was assured that public safety was at the paramount into an environment. And we're going into a park which I can see more trees getting knocked out. It's all right to say we're only using a small corner of the park at the moment, but it doesn't fulfil the requirements of building a library and being responsible custodians of public utilities. It does concern me, the whole democratic process on this, like Councillor Stadmiller has touched upon, is that we haven't looked over any other alternatives, and most of these objectives that have been so well highlighted here tonight doesn't have to be on the school grounds. I can see when the Local Governments Association is telling me that some of their major concerns are cost shifting and major cost cuts to libraries. Is a big announcement they made in the recent months. I can see what the Local Governments Association is saying to us in that we don't know what percentage, for example, what ratio of running that facility will be on council into future years. We can say we were responsible, but unless we know that we can cover the costs of that great responsibility we're taking on, I would argue that we can run the same a separate facility downstairs, meeting most of the objectives, given that education isn't one of our primary roles, on a stand-alone. But unless I see the information, I can't make that assessment. This may be the best proposal, and I've got no doubt it may be, but without some sort of concrete figures, without some sort of concrete proposal in this modern day where we should be able to bring up all sites within hours in 3 dimension and give us a look what they're going to look like in sight, we're under a disillusion that this new place is going to teach us things that we haven't got already. Those facilities are now there, but it is fairly unfair that we've been asked to, given that things have just changed. So I would move for a support Councillor Flannery in moving it back a month and get some more information that we can make sound, responsible decisions on. That's all I'll say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Wallace.
Oh, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A little bit of recent history. I was on Young Council prior to this institution, and for many years I pushed the barrow of a new library, and it had been on the long-term financial plan for many years before I arrived at the council. To be frank, I gained fairly little traction in my calls for a new library. Thankfully, during the period of administration, it came onto the agenda, and I commend Councillor Tuckman in that respect, because it came front and centre, and we are where we are. I'm fairly impatient about the whole thing, like I mentioned at the press conference a couple of weeks ago, so I want to get on with it. I don't know that we're going to learn a lot more in the next month. I don't think equivocating only sends a message to both the state government and to our community that we're having second thoughts, and I think we should just get on with it as the motion says and do it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. And the speaker is Councillor Tuggerman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I concur with Councillor Wallace's comments. I think it's time to make a stand and tell the community and the state government that we're very grateful for this $3 million, and I commend the staff for being able to achieve it in an environment that suggested otherwise, in that there were certainly a huge amount of applications for this regional cultural grant, and we managed to secure $3 million of it. The vision's there. Obviously, there's a lot of people that see the vision that this site and the joint use facility is going to be of great benefit to our community now and into the future. I do not see any reason for deferring it. I think if we move this motion and delegate the General Manager to negotiate the heads of agreement, and then those heads of agreement are brought back to the Council. I think we are in a fantastic negotiating position to get what we need out of it. Councillor Wallace mentioned that this has been an ongoing saga about Young Library, and I note in 2010 the former Young Council moved a motion to investigate sites for a new library. 2010. Are we going to have to wait another 8 years to be able to achieve this? I certainly hope not. $3 million, at the end of the day, we're looking at a $1.5 million loan. The rest of the money that we have to contribute is from state government grants. $1.5 million for an absolutely amazing facility is chips. And that's what needs to be considered. If we look at another site, we risk losing the $2 million from the Stronger Community Fund because we won't be able to meet our deadline. We risk losing this $3 million grant because we then have to apply for another grant because of the site location and the fact that it may not be considered a joint use facility. So therefore, if we make that decision, we need to build a new library, which will probably cost 6.5, 7, 8 million, depending on where it is and the location and depending on whether we have to buy land. And guess what? We're not going to be able to get that funding, and our community will have to raise that money. That's why I consider this the best deal for the community going forward, and I commend the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. I think Councillor Manchester. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I concur with probably 90% of the councillors around. 90% of the councillors around the table that now we need to get on with this project. As Councillor Tuckerman said, this has been an ongoing project for the previous Young Shire for 8 or 10 years, and we can't afford to let it go any longer, because we can lose the $3 million and we can also lose that $2 million that we've got in reserve from the community grants. So I believe that we should make a decision here tonight and move on with it, and remind everyone of a recommendation that was moved in November last year's meeting about this whole plan. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. I believe at this stage that leaves Councillor Ingram and Councillor O'Connor, and I did say I'd give Councillor O'Connor the very last say. Look, the sentiment's been expressed and articulated very well around the room, and I've said from very early on, when I was made aware of the possibility of this project, that I saw enormous potential for not only the current community but the future communities of Hilltops. I also said at that time that there was a lot of work to be done, and we needed to see a lot of planning and how this was going to come together and what was involved in it. So on that preface, I have been happy to speak to the possibilities of this, and I believe they are. The potential is enormous. But what I've also said along the way from Brian Ingram's point of view is I need to make sure I do due diligence and make sure that I have enough information to make a correct decision. I stood on a platform of making informed decisions. Sometimes people don't agree with the decision I make, but if I make an informed decision that my conscience rests well with, normally it's had me in good stead. I've supported the potential of this idea. I've also taken on board and respect immensely the input that the steering committee has been put in place, although I understand they feel they've been stifled and may have all the information given to them at pertinent times, but I can assure them it was. I take on very much on board the concerns about any damage to the heritage or respect of Carrington Park. I said from very early on that it would be a small footprint, and I know that's a loose term, but it was better than what I was hearing at the time about bulldozing Carrington Park. So it was probably the best of the worst thing I could come up with at the time, and organised for a rough sketch to be circulated just to show the community that we would never let that happen. As a council, and I've said that before, as a council, we would never let any damage be done to our park. My understanding now, with this recommendation in front of us and all the information I have in front of me now, and after speaking with the relevant people today in the departments, and I've been on air, no doubt Councillor Flannery listens to Country Hour, he would have heard me say today on the air that in all good conscience, I couldn't say no to this project, but with that same conscience, I can't say yes to signing that agreement tonight. I would wish to see and hope to see some more definitive plans from the architects to make sure that in the heads of the agreement that can still be worked up in a draft form while this is happening in the next, till the July meeting, to ensure that the concerns of these people that are in the room and the steering committee and the heritage people, that this won't impinge on that park and won't cause any damage to that park, which I'm sure the architects wouldn't allow, but I need to have some reassurance of that, so that when I do vote on this particular matter, I have as much information in front of me and I can say, yes, I'm happy with that. I would hate to think that I agreed to sign an agreement tonight to have plans drawn up that I strongly disagree with. That would take all leverage that I had out of play. I doubt very much that that would happen. It's a possibility. The talk about losing the money, I understand that. I think that may be over-talked a little bit. The reassurance I got today is that money, there's no chance of losing that money. The $3 million is there for the purpose it was granted from under that agreement. The allowance in time to the 1st of August is non-conditional, and if there was a variance to be asked for, or variation, council somehow come up and want to have a variance to that agreement, depending on the level of variance is how it would be dealt with. If it was a minor thing, it would be dealt with pretty straightforward. If it was a major variation to the agreement, then they would require excess information and, to the stage, depending on the size of it, another application. I personally can't see that happening, but it was pleasing to have the reassurance from the department that the money is there and it's waiting for a decision on council, but they didn't want to be seen to having pressure on council to make a decision on that agreement tonight. As was pointed out earlier by a councillor around the table, Councillor Armstrong, there's some administrative errors in that agreement document where it states from one page to the last page, Hilltops Council is the recipient of that money, and then on page 18 or 22, whatever it is, it says that the contribution is $3 million, and then underneath that it says the reciprocant's contribution is $29 million. Well, we know that's an administrative mistake, but I'd like to see that fixed. Given the feel of council I know about integrity and governance and probity recently, I'd just like to make sure that we showed the same dedication and governance on this matter as we do other matters. So, as I said, in open conversation and broadcasted that I've been really excited by the potential of this joint use project, and I am still excited about it. I just need to see some more definitive drawings and understandings of what it involves and just what the Hilltops community will be getting. Besides this, the $6.5 million contribution from Hilltops Council and what we will get with the funding from wherever it comes from to do the rest of the building. So I'm quite happy to have that out in the domain, that's what I'll be looking at if the plans that come back are suitable for all council, but I'm just not all that comfortable about signing that off on that document tonight. On that note, I'll give the last Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of questions for the Acting General Manager. If we were to vote on this recommendation tonight and it's accepted, in the time and it's delegated to the Mayor to negotiate the heads of agreement, issues like cost overrun beyond our contribution of $6.5 million, operational expenditure, to what extent have we got negotiating ability once we've accepted the money? I mean, I guess there my concern is just limitation of our liability, and I would like to see some of those things in a document before we accepted the money.
Okay, the position is, one, I'm not happy with the document in terms of how it's substantively at the moment. There's some errors in there that have to be fixed before we'd be prepared to sign off on it. That has already been raised with them. So if council passes the motion tonight, it doesn't necessarily mean, well, I'm going to walk in tomorrow and sign the document, because we need to actually fix those errors. Secondly, we're already in negotiation on issues like operating cost, on the rental cost for the facility, the staffing, the services that will be provided for the community out of that. So all the heads of agreement is actually include a whole suite of information that need to be finalised in terms of what we will enter into an agreement in terms of provision of the facility itself. Our aim, and the aim has been by the working group, is to get the best value we can get for the community, and that means dealing with those issues that you put forward, as well as many others, and in terms of the administration of the project, what's the liability to the council in an annual cost. At this stage, the indication is that they're only asking for a token rent, but then we have to provide for a portion of the costs of operating the facility, which would be your internet, your power, your water, sewer, garbage, all the other stuff that go associated with operating a centre like that. So these are all items that we would have to be negotiated as part of the heads of agreement.
And those operating costs are going to occur regardless of whether we site it at the high school or elsewhere.
Councillor Tucker.
So I think you've clarified my question to the acting, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the acting General Manager. Tonight, this recommendation is acknowledging that we are prepared to do a joint use facility and we're prepared to accept the grant. We're not signing off on any agreement at this point. What we're doing is giving you authority as the General Manager to negotiate that heads of agreement. And I would assume that that heads of agreement will come back to Council for endorsement. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor, we came back with great respect to you to have your commentary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought what Councillor Horton and Councillor Roll said was echoed my sentiments pretty much exactly, but I want to address something that has come through the various parts of the media, and that is that there has been lack of information, and that councillors are making a decision based on lack of information. So I went through my emails and my notes, and I just came up with a timeline of information just so that the public realises what we have had at our disposal to make some sort of decision tonight. Right back from the 18th of October, the General Manager at the time sent us an email talking about, and there were 4 documents. One was a community feedback opposing the Campbell Street Apex Park site. Another was from the business paper in July 2017 about the proposed Hilltops Community and Education Precinct. So it was already talking about it at that stage, including a university space. And they looked at site options of Mercy Care adjacent to the community hub as well as Apex Park. And the recommendation that came out of that at that time was Apex Park. There was a document considering the car park at the back of Town Hall, and potential for Carrington Park after the amount of objections to Apex Park. Then there were a whole host of media releases about the library, from the 26th of July, Win News, 4th of August, Young Witness, 22nd of August, Young Witness, 24th of August, Twin Town Times, 24th of August, Phoenix, 1st of September, Young Witness, 14th of September, Twin Town Times, 15th, Young Witness, 15th, The Land, and the 10th of October, HARDEN Murrumburrah Express. So this was all before we were appointed as councillors. There was already all this talk. And then we had the workshop on the 18th of October about it, and at that meeting, that was the first time Carrington Park was mentioned. Then we had a library interest groups workshop on the 2nd of November, where Schools Infrastructure New South Wales, Country University and the Young Community Arts Trust spoke to us and gave us presentations. Those presentations were emailed to all councillors on the 8th of November. On the 22nd of November, there was the council meeting item which we've spoken about in exploring Carrington Park as a proposed site for the precinct through a joint use project agreement. So people who are saying this is the first they've heard of it, it's been talked about since the 22nd of November 2017. And it was at that time that it was recommended that the General Manager be delegated to commence the process to acquire the lots on Carrington Park to write to the Minister of Lands advising of the proposed project, commence a further round of community engagement, establish a community project steering committee, and collaborate with the Department of Education for an initial scoping of the site. On the 29th of November, there was a councillor workshop and community engagement library meeting at Murray McCormick Centre. 5th of December, there was an email from Julia Atkin updating everyone on that meeting. On the 11th of December, an email from the General Manager giving insight into other joint use facilities and how they were working. 14th of December, the confidential email from the GM on Schools Infrastructure New South Wales term sheet. Again, on the 14th of December, there was a workshop on a library update, and the term sheet was signed, and councillors said that they were interested in the steering committee. There was also a follow-up email that day from Kaylee Smurden explaining that the steering committee would be starting. 6th of February 2018, email from the General Manager, project update, including the Mayor's interviews with 2LF. 22nd of February, email from the General Manager with another update. 18th of June, sorry, I've missed my thing, with the mayoral letter to the media and the library graphic, which was posted on the council website. 27th of February, email from Steph Howdell with a list of people who were interested on being on that steering committee. 1st of March, there was a community listening post on the library in the town hall one afternoon. The 2nd of March, there was community feedback in the rotunda of Carrington Park. 16th of March, an email from Kaylee Smurden with the agenda for the first steering committee meeting. 20th of March was the first steering committee meeting, and all the details were placed on the website, and I know people saw them because they commented on them. The 23rd of March, an email from Kaylee Smurden with notes from the steering committee. 30th of April, again from Kaylee Smurden, responses to questions asked by community members at that steering committee and the agenda for the second steering committee. On the 1st of May, there was the Community Project Steering Committee meeting. 6th of May, the Hayball Architect User Group workshop. 8th of May, another email from Kaylee Smurden with the minutes of the last steering committee meeting. 8th of May, email from the Acting General Manager with his response to Schools Infrastructure New South Wales, re the Council Business Paper and School Council Library Hub. 14th of May, email from Kaylee Smurden asking for councillor assistance to judge children's entries into the library design. 1st of June, another email from Kaylee Smurden rescheduling the steering committee to the 19th of June. 13th of June, email from the GM on clarity and accuracy of information, re the Regional Cultural Fund grant. 18th of June, agenda for the next steering committee meeting. 20th of June, the councillor workshop in the Leoc room. 21st of June, email from the Director of Community and can't remember the last bit, sorry, about the with the Regional Cultural Funding Agreement papers. There have been heaps of meetings held by council staff with relevant stakeholders. I've got a list, of about 20 relevant stakeholders who've had meetings. So to say we've had no information is inaccurate. And I can't say I've been to every single one. I've been to probably 90% of those meetings, as have several councillors around the room. We've been given information as it's progressed. Now, the information where it is at the moment is as far as we've progressed, and as Mayor Ingram said, in the next couple of months, the heritage studies will be complete, the traffic studies will be complete. We'll be given a lot more information, but we have been kept up to date as far as possible. That's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, just a point of clarification based on what Councillor O'Connor said. At any stage has there been a resolution of council for there to be a joint use facility with the high school? And can anyone please tell me whether the description changed between the application that was first put in and the description for the second application? And did that have any effect on where we now sit?
Councillor, I can answer to the point that there was a memorandum of understanding signed by council to investigate the possible use of a joint use facility when all council was fully aware of that, and proceedings progressed from that point to investigate the possibility of what that project could provide. and we are where we are today.
And Mr Mayor, that was after the 2nd of November meeting that MOU was signed.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
So, Mr Mayor, can you provide any clarification, or can anyone else provide any clarification as to what may or may not change between round 1 and round 2?
The information used for the application in round 2 was the information that was a conclusion that was made out of the business review for the project. And the conclusions made in that business review actually were then used to reflect the application for the grant, because that business review would have been basically available to the state government in terms of consideration of where the project was up to.
So it changed between 1 and 2 and it wasn't a resolution of council, is that correct?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Just a question, just following up on that, Mr Mayor. When was the business case prepared and lodged with the application, and when was councillors supplied? When were councillors supplied with a copy of that business case?
The first submission application was, I believe, on the 4th of September 2017 to go into round 1 of the Regional Cultural Fund. The second, we reached stage 2 and were asked to present a business case. That business case and the submission that went with that, testing my memory, but it was in the first week of April 2018.
I took the steps of circulating that when I became aware that document existed and needed to be circulated to the council.
Those documents became available because I requested the business case to be presented to council, which was done in confidence, in closed. I have some reservations that some of that documentation may have been leaked, and that's it.
It's in the media, Mr Mayor. Obviously, it's been leaked.
Well, that will be another matter, and I fully intend to. And I've spoke to the acting general manager in regard to an investigation into that matter as well. And I've also, Councillor Stadmiller, to talk to your point, have asked the acting general manager to fully investigate just how we got to where we are today. So that's a matter for the council to handle, but I hope I've answered your question the best that I can. I relayed all information when it was delivered to me, albeit I had to ask for some of it. When it was delivered to me, it was delivered to council, as you know, and it was delivered to the community. Thank you.
Just on that, the second part of my question, how much time elapsed between the time that the submission was made with the business case and councils were actually supplied with a copy of that business case by the acting general manager?
Well, that's now you've got the time frame.
I believe the business case, Mr Mayor, was presented to us as a part of the budgetary process, which was in May.
About the 9th of May is when we received it. The date that it was sent was the first week in April. So that's the time frame.
Thank you.
The way it was articulated by all, and take all points on. We go back to where we started with the recommendation that was there in front of council and had a mover and a seconder. So Councillor O'Connor's had the right reply to everyone. So there's been different opinions of what might happen and might not be happening. So I will put the recommendation as it reads to council. All those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Recommend. Those against? Recommendation is endorsed for council to accept the Regional Cultural Fund grant of $3 million for the joint use facility with Young High School, thereby acknowledging the joint use facility as the site for the new Young Public Library, and delegate to the General Manager to begin negotiations on a heads of agreement for the facility. Thank you, council. Item 1805.
This is the deed of agreement between Hilltops Council and Bronze Bill the Bastard Limited. We now have agreement with the company purchasing the artwork for presentation into the Council Reserve. I'm asking the Council to endorse this agreement. I've given a copy to the Council separately, but also it is actually included in the confidential section of the business paper if you want to discuss changing any of the conditions in there.
Thank you for that, Acting General Manager. The recommendation has been moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Walker. Any discussion or debate?
Question?
Councillor Armstrong.
Have any other means of securing this statue been investigated, such as leasing for 20 years with an option for the 20 years? It concerns me that this is yet another asset paid for by someone else coming onto our books that we'll be incurring the depreciation and maintenance costs on. I think that there's better solutions than owning a thing over time.
At the moment, we're actually purchasing it for $1. So.
I would suggest that at the first revaluation, that dollar will become a more realistic figure, probably in the order of $600,000.
Well, the purchase price, I think it's been negotiated at $400,000. So that would form the first valuation in terms of the statue and then depreciation.
Thank you for that. I've got a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? It's been moved and seconded. And there's no other questions or debate. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. If I...
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, I was wondering if I could move to suspend standing orders. I know some of the speakers in the public forum are still here who had raised matters which in the ordinary course of events we move those matters forward, or in history we have. So okay. I'd like to move that matter be brought forward.
We got a second? Yep, second for that, Councillor Manchester. Thank you for that. The reason that that probably wasn't done because of the number of speakers we had in the forum, and thank you for picking that up. So we'll move to that item now, which is help. DA, 18121. So we need to close that one and go to another one.
Mr Mayor, can I move that we move into committee just so we can ask some questions of a director and a few other fellows?
Councillor Flannery's moved that we move into committee. Seconded Councillor Wallace, thank you. So Council moves into committee with this item 121, is that correct? There it is, item 121.
Mr Mayor, can I ask two other councillors who are residents of Wombat in a broader sense, Manchester and O'Connor, their thoughts on it? I'm inclined to have a view differing to the Director, but I'd like their thoughts on it.
I concur with your thoughts, Councillor. Councillor Manchester?
Yeah, look, I know this block really well. It's the photo that shows the round bales. I don't think it's probably the total amount of round bales I've pulled off it their whole life. But there's about a hectare, it might be a bit less than a hectare. It's an ideal flat block. Adjoins the Wombat Road, fronts the Wombat Road. To the north and south of the block are small acre subdivisions, housing blocks with a few acres around them. To the rear of the block there's a creek line, and the other side of the creek line once again is small acre subdivision. There is a broad acre farm across Wombat Road opposite, but the real broad acre farms don't come into play for a couple of kilometres down the road, which are the Houstons, the Houston brothers. Yeah. This is just outside the Wombat precinct. I think it's about probably 500 or 600 metres outside the 50k speed limit, which has been moved out a couple of hundred metres just recently, anyhow. But when Harden was doing the LEP, part of this was looked at as a possibility of developing some more residential zones out. We probably might not get quite as far as this block out here, but we certainly were looking in that area. The main water line to Wombat goes right past the front of it. There is certain issues with the blocks, probably the entrance off from the block onto the highway, but I don't think it's impossible for them to address. So I believe it is feasible for it to be split up and held and sold as a housing development block, or a two-house development block.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Rolls. Connor, sorry, do you have anything to add to that? No? Okay. Any other discussion? Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr Mayor, I'll be brief for you. I'm reinforced Councillor Manchester's comments on this, that it's very close to Wombat, it's in a rural area. I don't know what a larger farmers are going to do if they were to acquire this. It'd probably take a fair bit of effort just to pull down the fences to crop it. To quote the movie, The Castle, I think that's what these people are trying to achieve here, and I'd be supporting that they be allowed to have a residence on the blocks.
Councillor Stadmiller, any other commentary or comments in regard? Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I've driven past the block to have a look at it, and I'd tend to agree with Councillor Manchester's sentiments. I think that perhaps the best use for this land is as a building block. Right? Certainly its agricultural value is marginal at best.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, just one further comment. A comment that Mr Filmer made with regards to Wombat. I think Wombat has probably include JUGIONG into a certain extent too, but Wombat's probably one of the few villages that's got growth potential in this in the Hilltops Shire, and certainly with its locality to HARDEN, Young, and Cootamundra.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor PLANNNG.
And water access, I would suggest, it's one of the key factors you need to live. Mr Mayor, just a question for the Director. It notes on page 95 that if for exceptions to development standards, about the fifth paragraph down, Council has satisfied that, and it goes dot point 1 and 2. At the end of it, it says, and the concurrence of the Director General has been obtained. There's been consultation with the Director General. Is there a view that the Director General, if we were to vote in favour of this, would overturn our decision?
Through the Mayor, the Department of Planning comments predominantly on regional and state matters. They wish to remain, they wish that Council deal with local matters. That's the advice they've provided back to us, and in accordance with that, they have no objection. They believe this is a decision for Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Director. Any other further commentary or discussion or in committee in regard to the matter? If not, I would suggest someone would bring us out of.
I'll be happy to move that the.
We're still in committee. We need to come out.
Oh, sorry.
It moved to come out of committee by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Wallace. All those in favour? So be it. Lost my iPad, sorry. Is it we refuse the application?
I'll move, Mr Mayor, that we approve the application for the subdivision and DA of the proposed erection of 2 4-bedroom brick veneer dwellings, and obviously the issue of the driveway and access onto Wombat Road will have to be addressed, as will the effluent issue.
How are we going with our penciler?
May I make a comment, Mr Mayor?
Comment by the Acting General Manager.
If you're going to recommend approval, we need to actually bring together the conditions for approval with this.
On speaking with the Acting General Manager, he informs me that if that is the feel of Council to go that way, that we maybe need to defer this matter so that the conditions that would go with it then could be all brought and put together, so that everyone would be clearly understanding of what was expected.
I'll move we reject the recommendation of the Director and bring it back to the next Council meeting.
And see that Deirdre's caught.
question, Mr. Mayor. Will that through you to the acting general manager, will that cause conditions to be applied to the development, or will we need to frame those words in our resolution?
I would prefer the council to indicate that it is willing to approve the development and that we be asked to come back with the conditions for approval.
Okay, we just better halt for one moment. We just better halt, council, for one moment. And we're obviously moving the amendment to the recommendation.
Mr Mayor, can I perhaps suggest that the original mover of the motion adopt the sentiments that were put forward in regards to the motion?
I hope it's pretty clear that if you reject this recommendation, you're actually supporting the purpose of my recommendation is that we approve the subdivision and building with conditions as suggested by the Director for safe egress and ingress and a sewer system.
Mr Mayor, there's no subdivision, so we can just amend what Councillor Flannery said.
I'm waiting to see what the terminology is. There something on the board, councillors?
Council approved the development report with conditions to be brought back to the July meeting council.
Is the mover happy with the wording on the board? The seconder happy? Is that Miller? Okay. I'll put any more comments, or
Just
I'll put
question: should that be developments, given that there are two applications here, not one? I've realised that for the purpose of efficiency, that we've considered two applications in one report, but perhaps we need to make sure that any resolution there accurately reflects the fact that it is two separate applications.
Yeah, so it's approved the development applications.
Is it on the board, councillors? To that way? To your satisfaction? All right. All those in favour? Again? So be it.
Do we have to record
Oh,
names?
I'm sorry. We record the vote, of course. I believe that's unanimous, so that's pretty easy to record, yeah. Thank you, councillors, for that, and thank you for your patience in the gallery. We go back to standing orders, back to where we were.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, is it possible to have a 5-minute break?
Of course it is, Councillor O'Connor.
This is the Easy to Do Business initiative. The previous Burra Council have participated in the Small Business Friendly Councils initiative. This program provides the opportunity for participating councils to implement programs that support small business, share resources and information with other participating councils, and promote this to the local business community. This is a free program. It's something that's provided for us and to run. The benefits are increased productivity with decision-ready applications and reduced transaction costs, which helps with us process the applications, and effective tools to help boost our local economy, enabling more jobs in the region and assisting the council to deliver on Hilltops' economic action plan.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
The Stronger Communities and Stronger Country Communities projects update. The information is provided there for the councillors to peruse.
Mr Mayor, with reference to the playground equipment and the Murrumburrah Creek, certainly I've addressed it on a number of occasions, but and we've advised the Murrumburrah Creek designers likewise that there needs to be an integration of the playground equipment and the Murrumburrah Creek upgrade. I note that we've got a report later in the meeting that those funding buckets should go together.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Just three, Mr Mayor, to the Acting General Manager. The Burra Urban Growth, $1 million. At the recent budget meeting, there was some discussion in regards to the need for borrowings. Now, those borrowings haven't been included in the budget. I'm just wondering how this project is going to be completed without those borrowings.
Mr Mayor, we're currently working through the issues around that project, and there's a number of things that come to light. I don't know whether Ken, you want to...
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Look, at the moment I'm doing a review of the Burra Depot site in terms of that project. We're in the process of preparing a draft report which will come to the Council in the July meeting. There are a number of issues that we need to discuss and look at it. It's not as simple as we initially thought. Yes, Councillor Tuckerman, there is some bores done, and part of that exercise is looking at what the situation there as well. So we are working through that, and we'll have a comprehensive report for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions in regard to that update? If not...
Just one, Mr Mayor, will be very brief. Solar power for council facilities. Sites across Hilltops currently being assessed. Allocation will be distributed across multiple sites. DA being prepared for Admid Building Young. But I'll be right in saying if a DA is being prepared, someone here could comment as to how much of that fund is going towards providing solar panels in Young, and how many panels, and what value for money we're getting.
Thank you for the question. Look, I've had a review of all of the applications in terms of the different sites. I can't give you the details at the moment. I can take that on notice and provide you an update. But the assessments have been done on all of the sites, looking at the return and that sort of stuff, and I think they're looking pretty attractive. So we're looking at trying to go to the next stage, but have to bring a report to the next meeting.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr Mayor, I'm just inquiring about the site determination of the tennis courts for the Harden Sports allocation. Has that happened yet?
No, it's been reviewed.
So a site has been determined, or it hasn't?
I don't know. But tonight they're reviewing the plans.
They're reviewing, yeah, but a decision needs to
There'll
be made.
be a plan that will have to come to Council eventually. Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, the recommendation's there for us to receive and note. I'll put the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Armstrong seconded. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. 18108.
The JUGIONG Village Addressing Street renaming. The report's to inform the Council on the status of the urban addressing for the village of JUGIONG and seeks Council's endorsement of the proposed street name changes after the exhibition period is now completed for 28 days. Details of the submissions we have received are provided in the report, and we're just looking to see the Council's endorsement.
Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Manchester. If there's any questions or comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Sorry?
Question?
Sorry, Councillor Armstrong.
The pronunciation of the street, T-A-A-F-E, is that TAF or TAFE?
Tape.
I'm just reminded of the internal issues in regard to Edward Street in Young, but TAF is the correct? Thank you.
TAF would be what I would expect it to be called, but that's not necessarily true. But you can have an argument with anything about Jarvis and Jervis if you want to do it as well.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Mr. TAFE, is it? Thank you, Councillor Manchester. From this point on, it shall be TAFE.
Thank you for that illuminating question, Councillor Armstrong.
Was that a spelling?
No, that's how it's spelled.
The recommendation is recommended that Council adopt the draft JUGIONG addressing street renaming as detailed in the report. And I have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18109.
The Integrated Water Cycle Management Project. This is a status update for the Council from the project group. We have committed to, under the New South Wales Government's Best Practice Management of Water Supply and Sewerage Framework, that have committed to prepare and implement a sound 30-year integrated water catchment management strategy and financial plan. We also are seeking the nomination of councillors for the project reference group as part of the recommendation.
Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded. I was going to ask, someone going to ask the question? Seeking assistance from staff.
Look, I don't think there's any actual specific number, but I think as we've got three major water supplies, it's probably worthwhile having three to represent the three main areas, but that's really up to councillors to decide how many wish to be part of the process.
Would we nominate the councillors first before we move the recommendation? Then it would be all done in one go? I would presume would be the way to do it?
Just through Mr Mayor, I want to seek clarification. Would I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in this, given that I am Council's representative on Golden Fields Water, the supplier of the water?
It's up to you as a councillor to make the determination on that, but my opinion is that this is more about the integration of the whole water cycle into the way we provide supply water and how we treat water and actually deal with it in terms of reuse as well.
I'll make that declaration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, can I make the same declaration?
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Okay, Councillor Ward.
Can I nominate myself to be on the committee?
Thank you. With nomination, Councillor Tuckerman, any other
Yeah, I'll nominate myself. Another question I've got is that there's no mention in it, I didn't notice any mention in it, of the proposed linkage of Burrurah into the local water system. There was some talks with Golden Fields that happened 12 months ago, or maybe more, and I would have thought that it would have been mentioned in this integrated plan.
Mr Mayor, that is part of the actual detail that will be in the Integrated Water Management Plan, is looking at the various options. Obviously, you appreciate that we're going through an exercise of looking at that concepts in more detail, and that'll be something that's ported into. It's worked up in conjunction with that. So one of the things that's a precursor to any funding application through Water Secure is that we actually have an integrated water management plan, that there is reference made to that project and the needs in terms of what Burrurah needs and those other areas associated with that. So that's a critical part of that.
And it's been going on for a long time, and we need to get on with it.
Point noted, Councillor Tuckerman. Look, we've had Councillor Tuckerman and Councillor Manchester nominated. Does anyone else like to be nominated on that, or if we're happy to go with two? Councillor Walker's nominated himself, so we have three councillors nominated.
I'll move the recommendation with those three councillors as the nominees.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and I've got a seconder in Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. We're on what page I'm up to now? There we are. 18110.
This is the tree removal from NEWSON Park in Harden. The eucalyptus bicostata, don't correct me on my pronunciation, blue gum is what I'd like to call it, is located adjacent to the playground and which is being upgraded and was requested that it be assessed. We've done the assessment, the trunk has borers and internal decay, and we're recommending that the tree be removed and
Mr Mayor, sorry.
Councillor Horton's moved the recommendation. Does he have a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded Councillor O'Connor. Questions or...
Mr Mayor, I've just got a novel way of addressing the problem faced by the Gentle Exercise Group, where they are down $1,000. Would there be any
Point
chance...
of order, Mr Mayor.
I'm not too sure if Councillor Stadmill, if you had a point relevant to this, I presume.
I do, if I was allowed to go on.
We'll continue and we'll get to the point then where we're going with this.
We have a cost of $3,400 for the removal of the trees. Surely there would be staff trained in the use of a chainsaw who could fell the tree and we could sell the wood, which would be saving some of the cost here, and that could be raffled off to assist that group. Something out of the box.
The sentiment, I understand, Councillor Stadmiller, but I think as a recommendation is there with issues in regard to unsafe trees. I think it's whether council does it or a contractor does it, and it'd probably be a contracted-in job. I'm not too sure of that point of it. That's not my role to be involved with, but I would think it would need to be undertaken very carefully and correctly. And as to the proceeds of the wood, well, that would be dependent if it was done by a contractor. I presume that would be his property. If it was done by council, maybe there could be something done. We could look at that and address it in another forum. That's how I would suggest that to you. Thank you.
Just a question, if I can, to Councillor Stadmiller. Would that group have the necessary skills and insurances to cover this?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Armstrong. I'm not aware whether they do or not at the moment, but if Council could work in a joint venture with them, I think we could solve a problem for that group in a very interesting way.
Thank you, Councillors. I'll go back to the report that's in front of us. The recommendation is there. It's been moved and seconded.
Mr Mayor, just a comment.
Comments?
There's been numerous trees cut down in Harden, particularly in that precinct in recent years, many of them quite good. In my humble opinion, many of them provided very worthwhile shade. Obviously, trees that are dangerous need to be removed, but there's a number of trees in the park that are dying far more substantially than this. In particular, there's some silky oaks there that need attention. They need the tops cutting out of them. They're poorly maintained, poor specimens. Question for the Director, what funds are available to do a review of the park trees and a review of the park? It is actually used to lock this park, and yet it hasn't had any botanical upgrade for years.
I'll throw to the Director.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to arrange for one of our staff to do a review of the park. I don't know the cost and the details at this stage, but that's something we can actually do a review and come back with the outcome for you.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Mayor, could I just make a comment that when the trees are replaced, could we make sure or keep in mind that they should be Australian species and also those that are suitable to this area? I'm not thinking so much of the trees, but for the bird life. Our bird life is going down just because the replacement trees aren't providing the food for our indigenous birds. So that's something to keep in mind.
Very valid point. Thank you, Councillor Rolls.
I'd suggest indigenous trees are actually the ones who have the greatest risk of dropping their limbs in a park. Probably not the most suitable place to put them.
There's the other side of the argument there. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. It didn't take long.
Just a question. Do we have a list of suitable trees for this? We do. Can I just ask a question through you, Mr Mayor, as to why it took 2 years to identify this risk?
I would have to take that on notice.
I note that it was initially reported June 2016. It's a long time.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll take that point that since 2016 it took to 2018 for something to happen. But anyway, okay. Any other comments or discussion? I've had a move and a seconder.
One issue.
Councillor Armstrong.
Do you want to go first?
Well, I was going to ask, could my addendum be included in the recommendation and the report come back to Council on the general state of the park and the trees?
So you'd like that at dot point 4?
Yes, please.
The recommendation. Is the second mover and seconder happy with that to be added, that dot point?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would the mover be happy if all of the trees were risk assessed? My concern is that that all of these facilities are required. Council's required to determine a facility visitation rating to determine the level of risk that exists, that is inherent within the facility. the nature of these trees is such that they will suffer from decay and pest damage. My concern is that there will be others there that may be equally as bad, and that all we're doing is taking away the one that we can see rather than one that we haven't reviewed yet.
Look, I've kept a pretty watchful eye on the park. There's a number of trees were cut down adjacent to the park that were more than healthy, more than alive, and I've still got some good photos of them, and I believe the staff that were responsible for cutting them down acted, I probably shouldn't use the words that I'm thinking, but it was appalling, the trees that were cut down, and there are a number of trees still in that park today which are either very poor specimens or are half dead. This tree is clearly sick. A review of the park used to be a beautiful park with a well-maintained NEWSON park at the front in a garden bed. It now, the lawns are basically well-maintained, the trees are not, and we just seem to let them get to a point where they're half dead and then cut them down rather than getting an arborist in and maintaining them and pruning them. And it's a disgrace, actually.
I think Councillor Flannery's addition to the dot point 4 with the review would automatically include, I would like to think, a risk assessment of all trees. Councillor Armstrong, I think that would be covered by that. General Manager.
Look, I just want to make the comment that early this year, probably February around there, we actually implemented a risk management policy in terms of looking after the trees near playground equipment and stuff. This was inspected in April as part of when we become aware. Obviously, clearly, this one tree is a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are other trees within the park. It's just been brought to our attention that this one is particularly dangerous and we need to deal with it fairly quickly. This is the JUGIONG master plan. The purpose of the report is to inform the Council on the draft landscape master plan and to provide information on the comments received from the public by the recent public exhibition period. We note that there's 12 written submissions received and the details are actually provided in the report for the Council to consider. The recommendation is we adopt the consultant be briefed on the public comments and to make current plan revisions from these comments and return the current draft plans to Council for adoption at the August meeting, along with further landscaping plans as well.
Move Councillor Horton. Do I have a second? A second to Councillor Flannery. Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Question, Mr Mayor, if I could.
Councillor Wallace.
I assume that this plan here was the scope of the brief to just go that far. I mean, we had speakers there, and so anything further will come later, and that's referred to here. Is that, it says it could be funded out of the block grant. Is it funded? How do we fund it?
To a director.
This would actually be one of these projects that gets funded out of the BPA process. And you'll notice on page 48 that the Copperbella wind farm is one of the BPAs where that would be used. In terms of the landscaping, yes, the landscaping can be extended, but I think you've also got to take into consideration the fact that a lot of that land that's undeveloped at the moment is flood prone and not likely to ever be developed. And that's one of the difficulties we face is how far do you actually landscape, what sort of facilities do you put in that area, and how far do you go when you know full well that you cannot turn around and develop any of that land because it's flood prone and it's also a high velocity area, so even putting houses up on stilts and those sort of things is just not possible. So you've really got to turn around and say how far do you spend your money and where do you go from there.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, Council. I've lost pages now.
The next report is 18112, the historical armaments.
Thank you.
This report is to seek council permission for Mr. Leserberg and the Goldfields Reunion Group to undertake their activities in the Hilltops local government area, including the use of theatrical armaments as part of their displays.
Question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Are these two groups, or is Mr Lesberg representing the Goldfields reenactment group? Is it one group or two groups? One group.
Thank you. So the report and the recommendation is there.
Move the recommendation, Mr Chair.
Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again, so be it. 18.113.
Section 355 committees. This report is to provide Council an update on the Section 355 committee matters. There's been a number of changes to committees and other issues to bring to the Council's attention. We've detailed them in the report. We're seeking now the Council to approve the changes.
So moved.
Moved Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Horton. Questions or comments?
Quick question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Sorry, I should have waited till you addressed me. Just wondering what funding Hilltops Council or the previous Young Council received from Destination New South Wales, whether that goes in line with the Cherry Festival and attracting visitors.
I'm not too sure if that's relevant to the article that we got in front of us, Councillor Stadmiller.
Section 355 committees we're talking about.
Yep, we
the
are.
Cherry Festival.
Yep.
Just regarding that committee and whether Council receives any funding.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm with you now. Okay, so I'll pass to the Director.
I'd have to take it on notice. I know they got some money from Visit Canberra, but I don't know that Destination New South Wales actually funds events.
Councillor Armstrong may be able to
If I may be able to provide some background on that, the former Young Shire did receive some funding when it applied for specific funding for aspects of it. So, yes.
Thank you for that. Councillor Tuckerman, question, comment?
Just in regards to the selection of committee members, which is point 3, there's only 2 that needs to be appointed.
That's right.
Currently we have 3, so I just wanted to note we need to make a decision on that.
The nominees are Craig Southwell, Andrew Southwell and Bob Searle, one being ineligible to start with. So there's 3 there and the appointment is for 2.
Sorry? That's what I said, but you've still got to appoint 2.
Still got to appoint 2 out of the 3 remaining eligible people.
Draw by lots.
Would someone like to nominate?
I'd like to move that Craig Southwell and Bob Searle be appointed.
Second, thank you, Councillor Horton. So can we have that report read that those 2 people were the nominated people to be entered into this recommendation?
Okay. Craig Southwell and Bob Searle be appointed to the Right Park with Community Enhancement Committee.
Thank you.
And that's where it should stop.
Thank you. Okay, with that stated, councillors?
Sorry, can we just seek clarification? General Manager? Acting General Manager?
That Craig Southwell and Bob Searle be appointed to the Right Park Wind Farm Committee.
No, that wasn't what we were going to ask.
I'm telling you what the recommendation will be.
Yeah. Is it going to be seconded? It was moved by Councillor Tuckerman, so it was different from who moved the main motion.
The original mover.
I'm quite happy for the original mover to adopt my comments.
And I'm pretty sure the original mover and seconder will be happy to adopt that into the recommendation. Thank you, Tony. So we're all on board. The recommendation's in front of us. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. 18.114.
Securing the long-term financial sustainability of regional and rural councils in New South Wales. This is an initiative we're putting forward that, to share a concept with the council in terms of looking at the long-term sustainability of regional and rural councils by actually asking the state government to annex aside a part of the Snowy Hydro 2 funds, actually be annexed aside to provide a sinking fund which actually generate interest to provide, then to be used to actually provide funding with it for local government to address some of the asset management issues that we've got.
Mr Mayor, if I may, and fantastic idea, but I believe the state government has already endorsed this as part of their budget. So it's don't need to advocate.
So
perhaps I could move that it be noted.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Tuckman moved this report be noted. And the seconder, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again. So be it.
Mr Mayor, just as a bit of an adjunct to that, and it's already been voted on, but I was actually trying to find an article in the New York Times or whatever it was about rural-urban migration throughout the world and the consequences it's causing on Western societies. And it was quite a long article. It's in one of these papers somewhere, but it's a real problem all over the world. And it's one that I think this report goes to the heart of, that if we continually lose population, we lose the ability to afford the assets that Western society basically demands. And we as a council are going to be... the article starts about the rise of Trump, the rise of Brexit, that goes on to what the key issue is, and that is that urban migration to urban areas and the demand for everything immediately is something that rural areas just can't sustain, and it's becoming an increasing problem. And the only countries that can afford it really are the central economies. But I guess to this concept we need to actually put in place, and it was highlighted at our budget meeting, an asset replacement program that is affordable and goes to the heart of what we're going to need in the future. So this is a great idea, but we really need to get cracking on identifying what our assets are that need replacing, the cost of replacing them, getting them included in our long-term strategic plan, and working so when grants become available, noting that there's an election in less than 12 months, that we are in a position to access money that is inevitably going to be available within the next 9 months. So we've actually got to more than receive and note this, start getting onto that asset renewal or asset register, and we've got to start putting in for sewer upgrades, stormwater, and be ready to go, not be sitting there going, gee, it would have been good if we were organised for that, because that's what's going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and my understanding is that some of those processes have been put in place, and you're correct, we need to be on top of our game and ready to act and be proactive. Councillor Tuckerman.
So can I just ask a question? What are the timelines for actually looking at our assets and doing our management plans around it?
Look, I'm actually doing a completely independent review of the asset management systems and processes at the moment. I've got consulting starting in about 2 weeks to look at the former 3 shires and go through things from top to bottom, right through to looking at the maintenance plans and policies and those sort of things. So once that initial study has been completed, then I'm looking to have a report come back to council to give you an update as to what the status is and where do we need to go to from here. The other part of the exercise will be looking at how does that information get recorded in our new IT system called Tech One. So that's part and parcel of the process we're adopting now.
So just to clarify, you've appointed a consultant to do that already?
Yes, I have. Yes, and they start in 2 weeks' time.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that, Director. Councillor Horton.
Mr. Mayor, I congratulate Council on getting on with this asset management. I've been harping on it for probably 6 months now. It's good to have an asset manager who consult and get a list of our assets, and somebody to check them out on a regular basis. Councillor Flannery said that where the money needs to be spent now, not wait 5 to 10 years when it's
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Just a question, through Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
General Manager. When will Council be undertaking its service level review as part of that asset management strategy development and asset review.
We're having a bit of a tag team going on. The service level review is actually an important part of our customer service plan in terms of some of that. The asset conditions and the service levels we need to provide actually will inform part of that service level review. But also, I think one of the key points that I want to make is in the next report in terms of our reconfirming this council's commitment to customer service. And as part of that also needs to be actually service levels need to be actually defined that we want to achieve as part of that as well.
Thank you for that, Acting General Manager. Okay, so we've moved on from that report that was noted and taken the commentary that from Council Plenary. Now the councillors, so we move on to the next item, which is item 18115, if I'm correct. Yep, thank you.
Customer services policy and charter and complaint management policies. We've placed this on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. As I said earlier, we're committed now to providing a high standard of customer service as part of the 3C program we're doing. Customer services, one of the profiles is part of that. So we're asking the council to endorse it, and the customer service policy and charter, the complaints management policy, and if there's to go on exhibition, calling for submissions, and if there's nothing substantially being made, then we'll just continue on to adopt it. After that, if there is something, we'll bring it back to council.
I'll move it, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Manchester. Comments or questions? I'll put to recommend Councillor Armstrong.
I'd just like to commend staff on producing a policy that's been able to pass through the Policy Review Committee. I do note Councillor Wallace moving the policy, given that acknowledgement for letters or emails that are made within 7 working days, whereas the previous policy was actually 7 days regardless of whether they're working or not. So it is perhaps acceptance of a lower level of service than existed in the past.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Armstrong. Any other further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you.
Report number 18116, the cash and investments policy as of the 31st of May 2018. This is the status report for the council on the cash and investments.
Recommendations there moved by Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. 18117.
The submission to the Department of Planning on the retail discussion paper. A number of comments have been put forward by the staff, particularly the way that on where we're going with retail. It's pretty clear that things are changing in the retail sector and how things operate. We're actually providing a submission based on, looking to provide a submission based on that, and the details are actually provided.
Council, there is the report there and the recommendation. Someone like moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Any questions or discussion? If not, I'll move the recommendation. All those in favour? Again. So be it.
Report number 18118, the Hilltops Comprehensive Local Environment Plan Preparation. We are seeking a resolution the council to prepare a comprehensive LEP for the Hilltops local government area. Currently we have 4 separate local environment plans across the Hilltops, and now have to produce a comprehensive Hilltops LEP. We're looking for interested councils to participate in the working committee as well.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, and we need to get onto this and try and get as much of it done, if not the whole thing prepared while this current council's in place. And I was fairly involved in the HARDEN LEP and working until we were amalgamated, so I'd like to nominate myself as part of the committee.
So I have a mover of the recommendation, also with the nomination. Do I have a second of the recommendation? Seconded Councillor Horton, and now we would probably seek to other nominations. Okay, we've got Councillor Manchester, Flannery, Stadmiller, Tuckerman, Rolls, Armstrong, and Horton. Did John Horton put his hand up? Yep, so we've got them names down. Armstrong. Horton.
Mr Mayor, just a question, if I may.
Did I have a seconder for that recommendation? I did, thank you. Yep. Councillor Stadmiller.
It states here the Council must follow the process outlined in the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. The graph after page 68, is that in line with what needs to be followed, or can it in any way be sped up and still remain within the requirements?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the process that needs to be followed is what we're talking about there is the formal process where it comes back to Council and Council makes the resolution. We seek gateway determination. There are some things in that we have no control over whatsoever, and that's the length of time that the department takes to give us a gateway determination. So the parts that we have control over, yes, we can speed up. That's the purposes of having the committee and working with the committee on getting resolutions from the committee quickly. Without coming back to a whole council. So that's the purpose of having those councillors on that committee, with a view to reporting up to a full council every 3 months of how it's progressing. So that's outlined in the report. So we can speed up the parts that we have control over. The parts that we don't have control over, obviously, no, we can't.
Thank you for that response, Director. Okay, so we've got a recommendation there, and with some councillors, and thank you councillors for nominating for that committee. If there's any other questions or comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? I'll have a show of hands, they tell me. Unanimous. Thank you. So be it. Item 18119.
This is a modification to a dwelling at lot 239 ARALUEN Road, Murrumburrah. We're recommending approval of the modification.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. If there's any questions or comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Again, so be it.
18120, development application statistics for May 2018. Asking the council to receive and note that information.
Recommendations there, councillors?
Move, Mr Mayor.
Just a quick question, Mr Mayor. I note that the Harden Racecourse was approved on the 22nd of the 5th, 2018. Has there been a media release go out about that for media to promote that?
I'm getting informed that not to anyone's knowledge. It'll be noted, and we'll chase that up, Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr Mayor, just a question on a similar, relating to the fire shed. What happens? Question for the Director, what's the process now?
Through the Mayor, the applicant has already been informed of the development consent and been given the development consent conditions. They don't need a construction certificate because it is a Crown development. They can now start work.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, councillors, comments?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor
just
Tuckman?
a question on the processing time frames. They still seem to be a little bit high. How are we going with staffing and resources? Through the Mayor, we have a new town planner started Monday. In the meantime, we have put a considerable number of the long-term outstanding applications out to a consultant to help us resolve. So hopefully they'll start to come, those processing times will start to come down now.
Thank you for that, Director. Any other
Mr
questions?
Mayor, same with the LEP taking the majority of the Director's time, I imagine, over the next 2 years. Will they be long-term appointments, or is it short-term to?
Through the Mayor, we have 2 strategic planners full-time on staff, a senior strategic planner and a strategic planner. Both come with considerable experience, so that their sole responsibility is to work on the review of those environmental planning instruments, so the LEP and the DCP and the supporting documents.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments in regarding to that? If not, I'll put the recommendation.
Do we have a seconder? I'm happy to second it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour? Again? Carried, so be it.
The next report is 18122. 18121 was already been dealt with earlier. The transitional group home for residents at St Lawrence, Ryan Street, Galong. The report is for council to consider a development application for the establishment of the transitional group home.
The recommendation has been moved by Councillor Horton. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rolls. I'm just getting to the... There it is. To the recommendation. So I've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any questions or discussion in regard to the matter?
Mr Mayor, I've got a bit of discussion on the matter.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Look, Mr Mayor, I'm finding it difficult to find support for this project. I see it as an organisation trying to find another use for a facility in a very small village, which doesn't possess the infrastructure to house that development, I don't believe. One such issue is police response times to the village. That's a big concern to me. I recently had to ask for the police during an emergency. It took over an hour for them to arrive, and I was 500 metres from the Harden police station. So getting out to Galong, I think, could be a further delayed time and putting people at risk.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Any other commentary, questions?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Flannery.
a number of questions. Page 117, well, 117 it says group home resident eligibility will be restricted to women who have successfully completed at least 6 months rehabilitation. Question I would have is who checks enforceability of that? Most of my questions surround enforceability, or it says strict measures will be in place. Strict measures to whom? Are the staff, as I've been led to believe, ex-offenders? Now, we're not to discriminate, but are we aware of who the staff might be? It says that the fence is the building is, or the property is mostly fenced. I'd disagree with that. It's got a railway line on one side, road on the other, and basically no fences around it at all. And I was on the Retirement Village Committee for 13 years, I think. So it says that the women will be locked in from 9 o'clock at night. There's no mention of families or where they might be able to stay when they visit them. Do they visit them? What the usual procedures occur there. I've been informed they've been denied access or been removed from previous premises. It says the building will be alarmed. Alarmed to where? If you talk, the recidivism rate means that 8 residents each year or each period will, 8 of the 20 will be recidivists, which I would have thought in the population size of Galong is significant. It says offenders will be sent home. I believe they don't have a home. As to approvals, the septic system currently, I probably have to declare a conflict of interest here, although I'm not 100% sure of it, because my understanding is that I lease the property opposite where the sewerage or septic from the previous home was pumped across the road or the water effluent was pumped out onto the paddock. Now, when I read the sewer or the sewerage management system, it's different to what I understand the management system to be. I would think there's extensive work, there's extensive money involved, and pumping it into the paddock opposite is probably not an option anymore. The existing on-site tank, a number of questions there. And could we have a photo of the lots that are actually going to be consolidated? Because then I might know whether I have a non-pecuniary conflict here. Incident reporting, there's no details on what incident reporting there will be, if any.
Director.
Forgive
me if I've missed some, and you might need to repeat some of those questions. Family visits are day visits only, so there's no provision to stay overnight. It's a group home. It's a group home, and the term for group home as defined by legislation is for those that, essentially a transitional group home is for those that are making the transition from incarceration or rehabilitation back into society. So it's not that they don't have a home, that this is a transitional place when they go from rehabilitation or incarceration back to society into their regular home. So they are assessed by a GP before they be brought to site, with the GP coming regularly to visit. A lot of the questions that you have asked are not dissimilar to those that we asked ourselves, and we are seeking an operational plan for the management and running of that facility. The septic system, yes, you're right, as it currently stands, it does go across the road. That's unacceptable. It needs to be discharged on site. Once again, you are correct, it is a lot of money, and the applicant has provided an effluent report to say that it can be discharged on the site. The sites to be consolidated are those outlined in red on page 117. So that provides sufficient area for the disposal of effluent for those 20 people that will be on site. So when we say predominantly fenced, it's between neighbours, not front and back. As you're right, that it does front, has essentially two street frontages, the rear and the railway line at the back. I don't know whether I've covered them all or whether I've missed some. I'm sorry.
I think there's mixed feelings in the Galong community. They don't want to see the home literally get vandalised, which inevitably will happen, but they do have concerns about the proposed usage. But I think, I shouldn't say by and large because I can't really speak on behalf of them, but there's a general sentiment that they would like to see the home used, and if it could be made work, I think people would be happy with that. But they certainly don't want something that can't be shut down or problems can't be enforced.
Through the Mayor, we understand that as well. The legislation around group homes are that if they are to be refused, they are to be refused on planning grounds rather than unfit residents, etc. When they say locked, it's locked to stop people getting in rather than locked to keep residents in, and that's a fire safety issue, so that you can't lock the doors to keep the residents in and then comply with fire safety regulations. So it's actually locked to keep people out. The operational plan, so we've asked for an operational plan, and we've asked that it be reviewed in consultation with stakeholders, including the community and the police, after 6 months. That's, we couldn't, legislation doesn't allow us to condition it for a time-limited period, so that the best that we could do is review the operational plan and the workings of that in 6, 12, 18 months or whatever the case may be. So that's the recommendation included in the conditions.
So if things did get out of control, on what basis can Council revoke the approval? Through the operational plan?
Once Council's given approval, there's no mechanism for Council to revoke that. We can enforce conditions of consent, and that may be through the variety of legal mechanisms, be it fine, be it court action, be it safety grounds, or whatever the case may be. Bearing in mind that we did send this to the New South Wales Police and asked them for comment, given the type of facility that it was, and recognising that they probably had more experience in dealing with these issues than we did. They come back as neutral, and their comments are included in the report as well.
Councillor Horton.
Mr. Mayor, both councillors, whether or not on the
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Are there any other questions or comments around the table? If not, I'll put the recommendation as it stands. All those in favour? We'll have to have a show. All bar Councillor Stadmiller. Against, so recommendation carried. Item 18. 1, 2, 3. That'd be correct.
4, 5, 6.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman.
Second.
Seconded Councillor Rolls. Any discussion, debate? All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you.
Report number 18124, the Hilltops Works Report. It's an information report for the Council.
I'll move it.
Moved Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, some questions, and probably some of them will have to be taken on notice because last meeting Mark Crisp was here and probably might be able to answer some of them, but I did contact Mark Crisp about Yandilla Road. It was graded last year, I think, and I'm advised by a resident that it's quite literally so bad that his muffler has shaken off his vehicle. It's almost untrafficable. I did note in my discussions with Mark, and he said he would get back to me, that it's very the resident noted a number of defects and a number of poor workmanship, and I did note that that was very unlike the HARDEN staff that I'm aware with. But anyway, could Yandilla Road, condition of Yandilla Road be assessed, please, or could Mark Crisp be followed up on that? Sealed Road, talking about Sealed Road repairs, I note the eastern entrance to the Young from the Moppity Road was sealed about a month ago, and I've got to say I think it's the biggest waste of money I've seen. A road that is so a kilometre or so of road that is so uneven has had another layer of asphalt put on it, and it needs ripping up. I mean, if we're going to put asphalt on roads that are that badly deteriorated that will pool water, we have no regard for our asset management. It's just shocking. I mean, I couldn't believe anyone would lay asphalt on that. So whoever's responsible for that needs some follow-up. Similarly, MR 380, and it's noted in the council budget, which is Cunningar Road, that $1.1 million is to be spent. Now, I assume that money's actually been spent. Is that correct? I think it's a Fixing Country Roads grant, and I understand the money's been spent. About a month ago, there were council staff there repairing splits in the asphalt and potholes. I have photos on my phone here of pools of water on that road the day before asphalt was put down. I mean, we just cannot keep spending millions and millions of dollars on our road and do poor jobs, and inevitably it comes down to the overseer not going and inspecting the job before it is finished. Now, I would no more let a header or a seeder in my property without making sure a crop's ready to go or a paddock ready to sow than fly to the moon. Yet we have a situation where asphalt's ordered, they come up from Sydney and they put it down because they think I can't cancel, and they haven't done their job in the first place. It happens over and over. Similarly with Campbellfields Lane, it's notes here that, well, it's actually Campbellfields Road, it's notes here the drainage was cleaned out. It was cleaned out about a month ago, and luckily they sent so in preparation for grading, luckily it rained the day or so that they sent the grader out, because they had a grader and a roller and no water truck. It would have turned into bull dust within days. It literally goes on, and it's not at the depot, it's in the head office. Something needs to be done about making sure we spend the money and do the jobs properly by inspecting it. And it literally starts with the directors.
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery. And I don't think you'd have anyone in this room disagree in any way, shape or form with your comments. It's crucial that we are on top of our game in all departments, and those instances that you mentioned then, I've got no doubt the Director will follow up on that and try to ensure that we don't have any repeats of laying asphalt in those conditions. Councillor Tuckerman.
Just one question, Mr Mayor. I'm noted that the MURRUMBURRAH Main Street lights on the Marsden Street, so the main CBD lights, are not actually working. So it's the streetscape lights. Pudman ones are working, but the Marsden Street ones aren't.
Thank you for that. Council take note of that. Councillor O'Connor.
Just a thank you to the Director for putting the Murrumburrah Lawn Cemetery maintenance on the list. I can get back to my oldies and let them know that it's getting there.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, one other. It's noted here on the page 154, weed spraying oval preparation in the southern area. Another issue that we've all received correspondence regarding is the irrigation system here in Harden, in Neil Street. Could we get a report, and I believe the problem should be a relatively simple fix through water meters or moisture meters. But we've got a situation, for those who aren't aware, where council physically or manually water the garden beds out along Neil Street outside the old antique store because the water system is the alleged causer of flooding of their basement. Now, surely to goodness we can fix this. Can we get a report on it?
To the Council. Director?
The irrigation's been on since December.
You're still getting complaints about it though?
I haven't had any complaints since I dealt with the last lot. It was October or November.
Thank you for that, Director. We'll take note of...
If you've got some, we haven't been passed on to staff.
Just on that, I think that...
Councillor?
Sorry.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just on that, I think earlier this year I received an email from the owners of the property that included a photograph of, I presume, a cellar with some water in the corner of that cellar. Now, I assumed that was still the same problem. Is that
I've been advised by staff that the section of irrigation adjacent to their building is turned off and it's manually watered.
Well,
I reckon I could fix the problem in half a day.
Obviously, Council and staff, it's a matter that needs to be addressed. It's been ongoing for quite some while. I actually thought there'd been an arrangement met and dealt with Council and the people who own the property. I think I'm right in saying that. I'm pretty sure there was a arrangement, mediation, call it what you like, come to with the parties. So I'm not too sure how it goes from here, but we'll check that with staff and follow it up.
Look, I can confirm there's been a settlement on the matter in terms of to end it. In terms of that, we've done further investigations to prove that it's actually not coming from the irrigation water.
Thank you very much for that. That's just about...
Mr Mayor, what Councillor Flannery is saying is right. I also received a letter from Dr. Sealer, Dr. Gay, and I've been dealing with it for probably 3 or 4 years on a long-term with the former Harden Shire Council. And I've been down in that several different occasions with a lot of water. But as the General Manager stated, there was a settlement of something around $11,000. The matter was cleared up, as I understand it. And then recently, when I say recently, towards the end of last year, early this year, they started again serving out letters of canvas. Councillor O'Connor, I know they came to new councillors as I was once.
Well, I think we've all got the April ones.
Okay.
But anyhow, in the letter that email I received from the Seagulls, they were saying that they were watering by hand. The irrigation was turned off because the Seagulls couldn't see back in there.
staff have indicated that the irrigation has been turned on for a considerable amount of time now. There's been a settlement. There's been a settlement made. So, look here, the staff are saying they didn't receive that email. If the people have a problem, I'm not too sure how we go from here, but we'll have to deal with it.
When was the settlement?
Last year.
Certainly received correspondence since then.
Yeah.
Well, that's the issue that council, I see council have now. That once you reach a settlement, the settlement's a settlement. I don't know what you do.
And since that correspondence, I'm advised that the water system has been turned off.
Okay, so we're under a different advice, obviously.
It was turned off, and they were watering by hand. But my understanding was that it was turned back on in December because the trees were under stress.
It definitely, well, I can't say definitely because I don't control it. The garden beds definitely died during summer. Now, they died because of a lack of watering. So if it was turned back on in December, you've either got a garden system that doesn't work or it was turned off. And my advice is it was turned off and they were hand watering. And if you drive along there, you'll see extensive areas where there's no seaside daisies.
So surely staff should be able to clarify that point with the people who deal with that side of things and come back to council. Thank you.
I don't believe you have. I don't believe
I'll take the matter up with staff again tomorrow for your council plenary, and we'll just confirm that the measures have been put in place and the advice that we've received is correct.
Look, it's brought to my attention, yes, there'd been a settlement, therefore there was no more liability on the council and they couldn't claim liability. We did some precautionary checks to make sure, and that including some digging down beside the building to ensure that none of the irrigation water was escaping down there and could be actually leaking into the basement.
I don't doubt that because I've got a number of watering systems myself, and to have that much water get into someone's basement, you would see surface water all over the road. I don't doubt that. My question is the watering system working? Are operational staff of the view that they still need to leave it off? Because I understand.
Give an instruction to make sure it is there.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on the report? If not, the recommendation, is there, getting late. And have a mover and a seconder? All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you.
Report number 18125, the action summary report. Summary of the actions undertaken in council resolutions.
Reports in front of us, council.
Move it, Mr Chair. Mr Mayor.
I move Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Walker. Comments or questions in regard?
Just a quick one, Mr Mayor. The venture with Bunyip Preschool Long Day Care Centre and Council accept the funding and work with the Preschool Long Day Care Centre for an educational scooter and cycleway. That's 17/306. Just wonder if we have any designs of what that cycleway might look like or what sort of costing it would be and where.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Who'd like to address that?
Sorry, 17/306.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Question in regard to 18/44. Can we get a bit of an update as to how our recovery process is going?
I'd like to speak to that. To the Director.
You're telling me at the moment.
May as well tell the Council.
Through the Mayor, we have had an offer from the person that owes that money to come in and just have a discussion with us.
In respect to meeting the outstanding debt, or in respect to waiving the outstanding debt?
I believe it's in relation to a reduced amount of repayments.
What scope is there for negotiation?
How far do we want to go? You want my personal opinion? We can't get money that doesn't exist.
And Mr Mayor, may I point out that the actual resolution is that Council pursue the monies still outstanding. Nothing about negotiation.
The position that we're holding with them.
Whilst we've received that, the bankruptcy people and the lawyers are still chasing it, so they're still chasing it for us, and
Can we get an update on the next meeting in regard to that?
Thank you for that.
Just one further question, Mr Mayor. 1841, just above that one, in relation to the actions from the Murrumburrah Community Association meeting. There's nothing there to say what's being done. What's being done?
I think it's in the report, but I think the columbarium has been completed. The engineers are going to do a timetable. The tip is being handled under the waste strategy. The waste for the well paddock is the council staff have contacted the Murrumburrah Community Association, and they'll get 2 new bins put in the well paddock. I think the air conditioning has been is in the grant for the. We did the villages part of that grant for the Stronger Communities funding. That's in that, and I think the weed spraying has been put onto a program with the parks and gardens to be done on a more regular basis.
My concern in relation to the parking bay and the bus shelter is that the Community Association has to acquit their grant fairly shortly, and this has been on Council's agenda for some time, and we're only up to the stage of getting a timetable for doing the work. I mean, when's the work actually going to be done?
Take that on notice, Council or Directors. Thank you. And make it happen, that's correct. Any other questions or comments in regard to the report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18126 is a notice of motion that was sent through by Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Stadmiller, over to you.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put that before Council for a vote, even though it is somewhat redundant.
Okay, Council, the notice of motion is in front of everyone. I presume everyone's had time to read it, as opposed to me reading it out to everyone. If you like, I would, but otherwise it's there, and the recommendation is that Council consider the notice of motion.
Is there a second?
Is there a seconder for that notice of motion? Seconded, Councillor Walker. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I have a question. Given it was noted that the former Young Shire moved a motion to investigate other sites in 2010, presumably there's a report somewhere about other alternative sites.
Look, I may have some doubts.
Naughty Young Shire.
2000, I'll speak to, and then Councillor Armstrong can elaborate, because in 2010 I wasn't involved with the former Young Shire, but if you care to listen for 2 seconds, I'll probably explain to you why nothing was done from 2010 until $2 million became available through amalgamation funds. The former Young Council didn't have the finance to go ahead with the new library at the time from 2010 through, so I doubt very much that there was any sites at that time looked at because of the financial restraints. And it was mentioned earlier about the opportunity to go ahead with a facility now, and that opportunity came around by $2 million that was allocated out of amalgamation funds. So we were fortunate there. Councillor Armstrong, you may elaborate with your years of
Thank you.
experience.
The council had considered informally and certainly met at the site of the current library building to consider the options there. The general discussion was that the site was too small and didn't certainly lend itself to redevelopment. The same went for the building itself because of the age of the building. The foundations were unknown. The preferred site was at the rear of the town hall, but unfortunately council couldn't afford to build a structure there.
Mr Mayor, we're moving forward. I think we're looking at ancient history there. We've decided we're going to sign off on the going with the Carrington Park venue, and I think we're wasting time talking about what has been from 2010 and onwards. Let's get on with what we decided earlier. Thank you.
Councillor Horton, any other comments or questions before I put the notice of motion? We've got a mover and a seconder. If there's not, I'll put the recommendation that we consider the notice of motion. All those in favour? Against? Recommendation's lost. Thank you, councillors.
Next one's correspondence reports.
Happy to move the correspondence be noted.
Councillor Tuckman, seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. I lost my page.
Page 161.
Won't go for me. Help me out, Director. I can't get to my page.
161 page 161.
Not on this, it's not. Council committee reports. For action, Redhill Reserve Committee. So, there's a report there in the Redhill Reserve Committee meeting, recommendations for signage and garbage bins. Is everyone on the same page now, where I am? On my iPad, it's the recommendations on 193 of 282.
The recommendations of the Redhill Committee are that we endorse the location and conceptual design of the interpretive signage and cover structure at the centre of the reserve in the quarry area, as indicated in the attachments to the report. Install no parking signs near the tradesman's entrance at Pudman Street. Install a directional sign at the Pudman Street roundabout to direct people to Redhill Reserve. And 4, install a garbage bin at each pedestrian entrance and place the bins on the schedule for regular collection by the council-controlled litter collection.
Move, Councillor Flannery moved it. Councillor Horton will be the seconder. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. And the next one is,
Ringo.
and I'll find it, is the minutes from the Maringo Section 355 Committee. There's a report, the attachment. It is recommended that Council endorse the minutes of the Maringo.
Move that, Mr Mayor.
It's moved, Councillor Manchester, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Questions or debate? I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. So now I'm up to we'll move the balance of the committee reports. Move Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Will we move into, someone like to move? Councillor Flannery moved it, move into closed, seconded by Councillor Horton. Thank you.